Chapter 2046. On the 58th floor of the dungeon. It was the same terrain as the safety floor on the 18th floor. There was no maze or high wall that blocked the view. There was only a huge cavern made up of black lead-colored walls and a ceiling. The difference was that the 18th floor was circular, while the 58th floor was rectangular. Now, in this vast rectangular cavern, cannon dragons and wyverns surrounded Noah, Aze, and Leafia, who were standing on the crimson dragon's corpse from all directions. They let out a chaotic but earth-shattering chorus. The scene was almost no different from the group of dragons formed by 10,000 that Noah had once faced. In addition to the dragon species Monster King, there were all kinds of other monsters on this floor. However, under the wide area attack spell that Leafia had just expended most of her mental strength to cast, the monsters had either been reduced to ashes or were covered in wounds from the bombardment. Compared to the cannon dragons and wyverns, they were no threat at all. The dragon-shaped monsters stared at Noah, Aze, and Leafia's group with ferocious glints in their eyes. Surrounded by such a large group of dragon species monsters, Leafia gripped her magic wand so hard that her hand turned pale. Even Aze's expression became more tense than usual. She obviously felt that the situation was a little serious. There were only a few cannon dragons present, but there were countless wyverns. After all, cannon dragons only appeared on the 58th floor, while wyverns began to appear on the 55th and 56th floors. They would also build nests and continue to accumulate in numbers. With several floors being connected, the number of wyverns that gathered from each floor by relying on their flying ability was naturally staggering. In terms of level, cannon dragons were classified as level 5. Even if there were only a few of them, it was definitely not a joke. Wyverns were only at level 4, but they were recognized as the strongest king of monsters at the same level. Each of them had a combat power close to level 5. Moreover, there were so many wyverns present that it would not be strange even if there were strengthened species among them. As for the monsters that had survived Leafia's AoE attack, it was very likely that they were rare species as well. Rare species referred to rare monsters that were extremely rare and rarely appeared on each floor. Enhanced species referred to monsters that had killed other monsters and devoured their magic stones. They were enhanced monsters that were more powerful than monsters of the same species. These two types of monsters were much stronger than monsters of the same species and level. If there was a rare species among the monsters surrounding this place, then they had to be careful. If there was a strengthened mutant in the group of wyverns, they would have to be careful. Wyvern was originally the strongest existence in the LV4 level. If it was strengthened, it would be LV5. If ignored, it would be fatal for every adventurer. In addition, the red dragon was eyeing them covetously from the side, ready to open its fangs and spit out the most powerful cannon at any time. This was a fatal situation. If it weren't for the fact that she believed that the man and woman in front of her had the strength to resolve all crises, and she had the idea of doing her best to help them, Leafia really couldn't guarantee that she could continue to stand and not run away. Let's deal with the cannon dragons first. AIC raised her rapier and stared at the red dragons with her golden eyes. Their threat is the greatest. The highest floor reached by Loki's family was the 58th floor. In the past, when AIC and her party stepped onto the 52nd floor, they were directly attacked by the cannon dragons. As a result, they were caught off guard and were seriously injured. They fell onto this floor and lost all their supplies. In the end, they tried their best to escape. As a member at that time, AIC naturally understood how dangerous it was to continue to keep these cannon dragons. Of course, for Noah, it didn't matter which side he dealt with first. He could even deal with them all at once. However, at this moment, Noah's heart moved. He suddenly turned his head and looked at the rock wall at the north end of the 58th floor. There was a passage to the 57th floor. However, on that passage, countless yellow-green pieces of meat suddenly rushed in and blocked the passage. That's a new species of monster? Leafia exclaimed. AIC furrowed her brows tightly and finally revealed a troubled expression. In this situation, they still had to face a group of larvae monsters that could corrode anything. It was really terrible. Only Noah noticed that something was wrong. That's not right. Noah muttered. Those new species of monsters aren't coming for us. It's not coming for us. AIC and Rafia were stunned. Then, an unbelievable scene happened in front of the three of them. A group of larvae monsters that rushed out of the passage actually stood up on the backs of the monsters, growling at Noah and the others. They opened their mouths and spat out a large amount of corrosive liquid. The monsters did not expect to be attacked from the back by their own kind. They did not even have the time to scream before their bodies were completely corroded by the corrosive liquid. Not even their bones were left. The large group of larvae monsters wriggled their bodies as they moved forward. They continued to spit corrosive liquid at the surrounding monsters, eliminating groups of monsters one after another. Noah saw it clearly. After eliminating the other monsters, the larvae used their tentacles to dig out magic stones from the smoking corrosive liquid and put them into their mouths. Seeing this scene, Noah aside, AIC and Lefia felt that their common sense had been challenged. No. Impossible. Lefia could not help but waver. Swallowing magic stones is something that only strengthening-type monsters would do. Could it be that all the new species of monsters are strengthening-type monsters? That was simply ridiculous. Normally, monsters would not attack other monsters. This was because monsters were all life forms that were born in the underground city. They would instinctively not attack each other. However, this was only the majority of the monsters. Under special circumstances or in special environments, some monsters would still kill each other based on the common sense of the law of the jungle. During this process, if a monster swallowed the magic stones of the monsters that it killed, it would become stronger and become a strengthening-type monster. Once the strengthening-type monster had a taste of becoming stronger, it might keep attacking other monsters and swallowing magic stones. However, this was only a small portion of the monsters. The scene in front of them was that all the larvae monsters were swallowing magic stones. An entire race of strengthening-type monsters? AIC and Lefia had never heard of such a thing. Roar, 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 roar. At this moment, the group of flying dragons, which was more numerous, finally noticed the group of larvae that were killing the monsters. They were instantly enraged. One after another, they roared and shifted their attention to the larvae monsters. In an instant, the battlefield was divided into two groups. On one side was the group of monsters formed by flying dragons and other monsters. On the other side was a group of flesh formed by larvae monsters. The two groups of monsters suddenly started killing each other just like that. The larvae monsters spat out corrosive liquid and killed the monsters one by one, continuing to collect magic stones. The group of flying dragons spat out fire bullets continuously, killing the larvae one by one, causing them to fall with smoke all over their bodies. However, every time a larval monster fell, the monster's body would suddenly expand and finally explode, causing the corrosive liquid accumulated in its body to spill out in all directions, corroding its companions into nothingness. Only the magic stones were left, which were swallowed by the larvae that were not sputtered. It can't be. This was the first time Noah had heard of this. Those new monsters can even self-destruct. The corrosive liquid that could even corrode a LV, for flying dragon and self-destruct. Noah, who did not know this, was glad that he did not face the larvae before. Otherwise, Noah did not dare to guarantee that he could avoid being corroded when his body was directly hit by the corrosive liquid. Ooh, 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 ooh. When Noah, AIC, and Lefia were attracted by the chaotic battlefield in front of them, the cannon dragons also began to roar impatiently, flames rising in their mouths again. Their targets were Noah, AIC, and Lefia. Forget it. Noah made a prompt decision. Let's get rid of the cannon dragons that are the biggest threat first. Both AIC and Lefia hurriedly nodded. The battle was about to start. Chapter 2047. Release a ray of light, bough of the holy wood, thou art a famous archer. As the cannon dragons growled and bared their fangs to compress the expanding flames, Lefia subconsciously raised her wand and began to chant. A dazzling magical formation spun on the ground beneath the elven sorcerer and began to expand. It continuously refined Lefia's mental strength into magical power and slowly fluctuated. Awaken. At the same time, Ace softly chanted an incantation, causing a whirlwind to swirl around her and shroud her weapon and body. Snipe, elven archer, shoot through, arrow that will definitely hit. In the next second, amidst Lefia's melodious chant, Ace, who was shrouded in wind, rushed out and instantly got into the arms of one of the cannon dragons. The silver sword in her hand flashed and immediately left a bloody wound on the crimson cannon dragon's body. The cannon dragon howled in pain, but the murderous glint in its eyes intensified. It raised its tail and swept it in Ace's direction as if it was sweeping away an army of 1,000. The dragon tail, which had turned into a long whip, carried with it a piercing sound of the wind and swept out like a blurry shadow. Judging from the momentum, if Ace was hit, she would still be injured even if she was protected by magic. However, that would only happen if the attack hit her. Ace, who was riding the wind, had already leaped agilely and avoided the dragon tail. Her body turned into a gust of wind and flashed back and forth in front of the cannon dragon. She held onto the cannon dragon tightly while waving the thin sword in her hand, leaving wound after wound on the cannon dragon's body. Under such circumstances, the other cannon dragons seemed to want to attack Ace from both sides. However, because Ace was entangled in front of their companions, they didn't dare to release the large fireballs they had compressed in their mouths. In that case, regardless of whether they could hit Ace, their larger companions would definitely not be able to dodge the cannon fire. In the end, not only would they fail to hurt the enemy, they would also hurt their own people. With no other choice, the cannon dragons could only let out furious roars and pounce in Ace's direction. Immediately, the golden-haired girl was surrounded by huge cannon dragons. However, AIC used her agility and speed to maneuver between the cannon dragons, dodging their sharp claws and heavy tails. Once she found an opportunity, she would swing her sword and slash at the monsters around her. Logically speaking, the pincer attack of several LV-5 dragon species monsters was extremely dangerous even for a LV-6 adventurer. Not to mention, dragon monsters were originally known as the strongest existence among monsters of the same level. If they besieged a LV-6, it would not take long for them to beat the opponent to death. However, from its name, it could be seen that the cannon dragon was a monster specialized in cannon attacks. As a monster that had been strengthened for the purpose of cannon attacks, the cannon dragon had the terrifying power to snipe adventurers far above the 52nd floor even if they were separated by several floors. But once the cannon fire was blocked, it would not be difficult to deal with it. Ace grasped the weakness of the cannon dragon. By entangling with one cannon dragon, the other cannon dragons were afraid to attack. This way, she beautifully blocked the cannon fire of the cannon dragon. She wandered between several cannon dragons and left sword wounds on them. The scene seemed thrilling, but in fact, the situation was more favorable to Ace. That girl can almost be called superb in combat. Undoubtedly, she doesn't even know how to cook. Noah muttered like this, but he did not step forward to help. Instead, he glanced at Lefia, who was chanting a magic spell with her eyes closed next to him. When launching magic, no matter what kind of magic it was, it required extreme concentration and correct incantation to succeed. The more powerful the magic, the longer the incantation would naturally be, and the more mana the magic shooter needed to convert. However, if too much mana was injected, it would be harder to control it. If one could not control the mana, not only would the magic not be able to be launched, it might even cause the mana to explode and injure oneself. Therefore, in order to be able to launch the magic smoothly, it was necessary to concentrate on precise control of the mana. Therefore, magic shooters who specialized in magic would generally be arranged in the rear guard position, concentrating on chanting incantations and casting magic under the protection of their companions. However, there were some highly skilled magic shooters who had a way to do two things at once. While accurately controlling the mana, they could also carry out other actions. People called this technique of doing two things at once parallel chant. Riveria was the master of this superb technique. Moreover, as the most powerful magic shooter in Eulalia, Riveria's parallel chant was not just about doing two things at once, or even 3 things at once, but 4 things at once. Being able to simultaneously chant, move, dodge, and defend, even at the forefront of the battlefield, one could often see the scene of her fluttering cloak behind her back, like a fairy shuttling through a group of monsters, dancing gracefully. Thus, just like Ave, the gods also gave Riveria the title of G. In addition, Riveria was able to use a total of 9 types of magic, so the gods called her the 9 devil concubines. Naturally, Riphia had not reached Riveria's level. Because of this, someone had to protect Lephia while she was chanting the incantation. Noah's actions allowed him to smoothly discover another anomaly. He saw that in the chaotic battlefield ahead, a group of larvae monsters that were fighting with the wyverns suddenly seemed to be stimulated by something. They trembled all over, turned their heads, and turned towards one of the directions. That direction was where Noah was. Immediately afterward, a large group of larvae wriggled their bodies while ignoring the wyvern's attack. Instead, they swarmed toward Noah as if they were going to advance toward him. Seeing this scene, Noah was surprised. What happened? As soon as his voice fell, Athena's answer rang in Noah's heart. Those monsters seem to have an overreaction to magic. The 2 little girls you brought with you are using magic now, so it's natural that they'll attract those monsters. Overreaction to magic? Noah frowned and had a guess in his heart. Could it be because of this special characteristic that these monsters attacked other monsters carrying magic stones? I'm not sure, but I did notice something else, Athena said. If you look carefully, you will find that those larvae monsters, in addition to harvesting items called magic stones, are all moving toward the south. South? Noah was slightly stunned, then turned his head and looked toward the south. There was a cave entrance. The passage to the 57th floor was in the north of this huge cavern. The passage to the 59th floor was in the south of this huge cavern. And now, the larvae monsters were all beginning to move toward the south. What did this mean? Just now, those larvae monsters also came out from the passage to the 57th floor, right? Athena said. Now, they are moving toward the passage to the 59th floor. It seems that those monsters want to go to the floors below. There must be something in the floors below that is attracting these monsters. Athena suddenly smiled. My fated one, your intuition wasn't wrong. As Athena laughed, next to Noah, the elven girl's magic burst out. Spiritual light arrow. As Lephia raised the wand in her hand high up, a huge flash of light suddenly burst out, like a thick beam of light that swept straight ahead. All the monsters in front of the flash, whether it was the wyverns, the cannon dragons, or the larvae, gradually disappeared as if they were annihilated. When the flash disappeared, there was almost nothing left on the ground except for a scorched mark. Phew, Lephia exhaled loudly, panting even more heavily than before. AIC, on the other hand, looked at Lephia in amazement, causing Lephia to feel a little giddy. Only Noah noticed. Not only did Lephia's attack not improve the situation, but it also caused the larvae that were entangled with the wyverns to turn around and swarm over. Those monsters are reacting to magic. Chapter 2048. Splat. Splat, splat, splat. As the battle in the vast cavern intensified, the ceiling of the 58th floor, which had been blasted open by the cannon dragons, started to repair itself. As the ceiling gradually repaired itself, the number of wyverns that flew out from each floor decreased. After an unknown amount of time, the ceiling that had been blasted open was completely repaired, and the wyverns on the other floors did not fill in. At the same time, the number of larvae that came out from the passageway to the 57th floor also decreased. Under such circumstances, as the battle went on, the number of wyverns and larvae decreased. In the end, the larvae that had the powerful corrosive liquid as a weapon won the battle. They swallowed the magic stones one by one, wriggled their bodies, and started to move toward the south of the cavern, entering the passageway to the 59th floor. As the last larvae entered the passageway and entered the 59th floor, the cavern became silent. After a while, at the edge of the cavern, behind a dead cannon dragon, 3 figures slowly walked out. Those monsters actually entered the floors below. Leafia held her wand and carried her backpack. She looked at the entrance to the 59th floor in disbelief. It wasn't just Leafia. Even AIC was silent. They collectively hunted monsters of other races and swallowed the magic stones. They collectively moved to the other floors. Without a doubt, this was something that went against the adventurers' understanding of the underground city. However, the larvae that could spit out corrosive liquid easily did it. Monsters that can ignore the floors they are on, and monsters that can collectively do what only the enhanced species can do. Plus, there's a huge sale of monsters across floors that rarely happens. So this is the real reason why the so-called common sense of the 50th floor and above is useless here? That's right. Noah looked around the cavern that had become a mess. After a while, he suddenly smiled. Things are getting more and more interesting. It was the right decision to come here. Compared to Noah's relieved smile, the surrounding environment was extremely miserable. There were places that were charred because of Leafia's magic. There were also places where the corrosive fluid of the larvae monster had become scorched and emitted a poisonous gas. There were also places that were full of craters because of the flying dragon's fiery bombs. There were also places where the magic stones were taken away by the larvae, and the bodies of the monsters were reduced to ashes. His appearance was as if he had been attacked by artillery. It was a horrible sight to behold. Those new monsters seemed to only be after the magic stones. The monster's loot seems to have been left behind. Noah stepped on the charred ground and counted the loot around him. Wyvern's fangs, wyvern's nails, wyvern's skin, and wyvern's skeleton. These are all valuable drops. If we collect them all, we can sell them for tens of millions or even hundreds of millions. There are no more magic stones, AIC murmured as she followed behind Noah. Only the magic stone of the cannon dragon that we killed hasn't been retrieved yet. That was why Xiao Long's corpse was still there. Only by retrieving the magic stones would the monster's corpse turn into ashes. Otherwise, it would be no different from a human and leave behind a corpse. Then let's go retrieve it. Noah shrugged. Otherwise, we've been hiding for so long. It's a little boring. When he noticed that the larvae monsters would target magic stones and magic stones, Noah stopped Leafia, who was planning to continue using magic. He even called back AIC, who had killed a few cannon dragons, and brought the two girls to hide. Without magic stones as a trigger, the larvae monsters targeted the monsters on this floor. They helped Noah, AIC, and Leafia to clear out the monster horde that could be considered an army of thousands. Noah and the rest reaped the benefits. Although the magic stones would be taken away, the larvae monsters did not target the loot. This batch of Varus loot, which was worth hundreds of millions, went into Noah, AIC, and Leafia's pockets. But, are we going to start collecting the loot now? Leafia asked, a little surprised. The loot here is very big. It takes up a lot of space in the backpack, right? Hearing that, Noah looked at Leafia with a half-smile, reminding her. With the tool called the gift card, Noah did not need to worry about the capacity and weight of the items he carried. Moreover, compared to this, shouldn't you be more worried about yourself? Noah sighed as if he saw through Leafia's stubbornness. You've used a few powerful spells. You must have used up a lot of your mental strength. It's best to replenish it first, right? Ugh. Leafia groaned as if she had been poked in a sore spot. This elven girl had always thought that it would be better to leave the precious items for the first-level adventurers to use instead of using them herself. That would be more beneficial for the upcoming exploration, right? However, this idea was obviously a dead end for Leafia. At this point, you should have realized that your magic can also play a role in the strategy this time, right? Noah said bluntly. You've been going down a dead end and causing your mental strength to be in a state of great depletion. When you're really needed later on, you can't even use a single spell. That will really be a burden. Are you willing to see that? Noah's words once again poked at Leafia's sore spot. Dragging him down. That was something that Leafia could not allow herself to do. It's not just Leafia. Ace also needs to replenish. You've also used up a lot of your stamina and mental strength in the battle just now, Noah said in a tone that did not allow for any exceptions. Don't worry about not having enough recovery items. Finn is well prepared. There are still a lot of items in my gift card. You don't have to be so stingy for your own clan members. Upon hearing Noah's words, Ace and Leafia lowered their heads as though they were too ashamed to lift their heads. In the end, the two young ladies obediently took out spiritual potions to replenish their stamina and mental strength from their backpacks and started replenishing themselves. Meanwhile, Noah listened attentively to Athena and Draeger's words. I didn't expect the underground city to be able to nurture the dragon race, Draeger said in disbelief. If a Rubian were to witness this scene, he would definitely be shocked, right? Although nurturing life is the instinct of every race, what the underground city has done is equivalent to creating life, Athena said thoughtfully. That's the territory of God. It seemed that Athena and Draeger had their own thoughts after witnessing the incredible underground city with their own eyes. On the other hand, Aster didn't seem to be interested in it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have remained silent. As for Orpheus and Lilith, they must be hiding in their gift cards and observing silently, right? At this thought, Noah looked towards the entrance of the passage in the south of the cavern again, feeling a little restless. Should I go in and take a look? When Noah had such an idea, at the entrance of the passage at the north end, the first-level adventurers of Loki's clan finally arrived late. Ace. Leafia. Tiona immediately pounced over and hugged Ace and Leafia. Are you alright? Tyagni also came over. After sizing up Aic and Leafia, he heaved a sigh of relief. Finn, Riveria, and Gareth's expressions also relaxed. They looked towards Noah and exchanged glances with Noah. Then, they looked at the messy surroundings and immediately understood what had happened. Only Bert crossed his arms and glanced at Noah, Ace, and Leafia before speaking softly. What a nuisance, I'm sorry. Leafia stepped forward and bowed to everyone. It's all my fault. You were indeed negligent. You shouldn't have let your guard down even during the replenishment period. Finn shook his head. However, you were in the middle of the group and were protected by us. We allowed the monsters to break through the protective circle and attack you, causing you to be hit by the cannons. If not for Draeger, we would have lost a comrade. This is also our negligence. Everyone has to reflect on it. Everyone immediately lowered their heads. Chapter 2049. From the 50th floor all the way to the 58th floor, it should have only been about half a day, right? However, in just half a day, the danger was very obvious. Especially when they encountered the cannon dragon's attack on the 52nd floor. Even though the group of Loki's clan had experienced it once before, there was still an accident. Just like what Finn said, everyone was at fault. Rifia shouldn't have let down her guard during the resupply period. The group of level 1 adventurers shouldn't have overlooked the threat of the monsters hiding in the shadows on the 52nd floor because of the cannon dragon's attack. If it wasn't for Noah saving Rifia, then this young elven girl might have really died in the mouth of the monster. Thinking of this, the level 1 adventurers all fell into silence, and Rifia was a little at a loss. Under such circumstances, it was Noah who mentioned it intentionally or unintentionally. Although the 58th floor has stopped producing monsters now, this is still the monster's nest. Next, we still have to enter the 59th floor of the unreached area. Let's not waste time blaming ourselves. If you want to reflect, wait until we return to the clan to have a reflection meeting. Saying this, Noah sized up Finn's group. Also, you have to hurry up and resupply, right? Seeing Noah sizing up Finn's group, Ace and Rifia noticed. Compared to their own group, Finn's group was in a very bad state. Finn and Bert's bodies were covered in scorch marks, and part of Gareth's armor was cracked. Tiona and Tyagni's brown skin had wounds oozing with blood, and even Riveria's outfit was a little messy. Obviously, in order to reach the 58th floor, Finn's group had fought a lot along the way. Fortunately, you threw the backpack to me before falling here. Gareth let out a rare bitter laugh. If it wasn't for the recovery items inside, we might not have made it here. Not only did we encounter a group of wyverns, but we also fought with a new type of monster, Riveria said. Although we've made sufficient preparations, if we don't have items to resupply, it's really dangerous. Thanks to this, we ended up like this, Tioni said helplessly. I used up all my items not too long ago. These are all accumulated. So, hurry up and give us some panacea, Tiona said weakly. Otherwise, we'll really die. That's it. Bo-Tay curled his lips. Hurry up and take out the items. We need to replenish our supplies. I understand. Leafia hurriedly opened the backpack on her back and took out bottles of elixirs, which she distributed to everyone. After consuming a few bottles of the highest quality panacea, the injuries of the group of level 1 adventurers gradually began to improve. Then, Leafia took out a high-grade magic medicine and handed it to Riveria. Come to think of it, Riveria should have consumed a lot of spirit power along the way. While everyone was replenishing their supplies, Finn was looking at the entrance to the south with a smile on his childlike face. The 59th level, we're finally reaching it. Hearing this, everyone revealed smiles one after another, letting their excitement replace their self-blame. The arrival of the unreached level would prove that Loki's spawn was one of Eulalia's most powerful spawn. After all, that level was only reached by Zeus's spawn who had climbed to the peak. Entering that floor meant that Loki's clan had finally caught up with the footsteps of the clan that was once known as the strongest in the dungeon's exploration. This was undoubtedly a kind of glory for Loki's spawn. In response, Noah, AIC, and Leafia looked at each other. What's wrong? Finn asked directly when he sensed the abnormality in the three. Is there something wrong? Noah and AIC did not speak. Instead, they turned their gazes to Leafia. Leafia hesitated for a moment. Then, she told Finn and the others about the strange things they encountered on this floor one by one. What? Both Tiona and Tioni were shocked. Those new monsters are all strengthened species that can consume magic stones? You're kidding, right? Bert's eyes became fierce. I've never heard of an entire race of enhancers. Riveria and Gareth also furrowed their brows tightly. My thumb is tingling, which tells me that this is definitely not a normal thing. Finn narrowed his eyes and looked at AIC. And then? Did those new monsters enter the 59th level? Yes, AIC nodded and said softly. I wanted to chase after them, but Noah didn't let me. Of course he won't let you go, Noah said in annoyance. Who knows what's on the 59th level? And what if Finn and the others came right after you left? That's right, Finn agreed. We were attacked by the cannon dragon on the 58th level on the 52nd level. The levels below must be even more dangerous. AIC, even if you once killed a LV, 6th floor master alone, I won't let you do whatever you want. AIC suddenly became dejected. Of course, AIC didn't know that the reason why Noah didn't let her go was actually because he had a little plan. That was to let AIC and Leafia stay here and wait for Finn and the others, then he would go in. Unfortunately, before this little plan could be implemented, Finn and the others rushed over. However, we must be prepared to fight the army of new monsters on the 59th level, Finn said. Although I don't know if those new monsters will continue to go down, it's never wrong to be careful. Finn's words made Tiona and Tiorn's face bitter. Do we have to fight those disgusting monsters again? Please, spare me. Not only can those guys spray corrosive liquid, they can also self-destruct. Every time I kill them, I have to dodge them in a hurry. In the end, I still get hit by the splash a few times. I don't have AIC's magic to deflect the corrosive liquid with wind. While Tiona and Tiorn were complaining, Bert was also smacking his lips. Riveria and Gareth's brows were furrowed deeper and deeper, obviously feeling that the situation was getting more and more troublesome. After all, in the last expedition, they couldn't even step into the 52nd level. All of their weapons were dissolved by the larva-type monsters wandering on the 51st level. In the end, they had no choice but to retreat. Now, the 59th level was right in front of them. The monsters that caused them to fail in the last expedition might also be there, so they couldn't help but feel troubled. "Hey, Noah," Finn pondered for a moment and then asked. "How many magic swords do you still have?" "About 7 or 8. Noah replied. "You've acquired a total of 35 magic swords. Half of them are in the camp for the people in the clan to use. As for the remaining half, some are in the gift card and some are in the backpack. Looking at you guys, the magic swords in the backpack that I left for you should have been used. That's all that's left." 7 or 8? Finn frowned. The situation is a little grim. Finn and the others weren't afraid of the new monster's combat power, but their corrosive liquid. If it was just a spray, it would be fine. The worst thing was that the monsters would self-destruct if they were killed. In this way, close combat would be a lot more dangerous. If there's no other way, then let Riveria and Leafia use magic to deal with the new monsters, Gareth said. Moreover, Riveria also knows how to use defensive magic. With defensive magic, we can be at ease. That's the only way. Finn sighed and then looked at Noah with a serious expression. If it's really necessary, then just do it. Don't worry about us anymore. Noah raised an eyebrow. It seemed that Finn had seen through his plan. Bert, who didn't know what was going on, spoke in disdain. If relying on those small fries was useful, we wouldn't have had to run away the last few times. Shut up. Tiona immediately covered Bert's mouth, causing him to struggle madly. The others all looked at Noah. Under everyone's gaze, Noah finally sighed. I understand. Only then did everyone laugh. Chapter 2050. About half an hour later, the group of Loki's family members arrived at the southern end of the huge cavern. Standing in front of the pitch-black tunnel, everyone looked at each other before finally focusing their gazes on Finn. Under the gazes of everyone present, Finn stared at the entrance of the passageway in front of him. He licked his thumb with a thoughtful expression on his face as he muttered to himself. It's a little strange. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. What's wrong? Noah did not care about anything and asked directly. What's strange about it? I've read the records left by Zeus family members. There's a record of the 59th floor. Finn did not turn around and said directly. According to the records, the terrain of the 59th floor is no longer a labyrinth like the Dragon Pot, but a glacial zone with extremely low temperature. Glacial zone? Noah was surprised. No wonder you gave me so many protective equipment with fire essence protection. So it was to guard against this? That's right. Finn nodded. According to the records, there are glaciers everywhere on the 59th floor. It's extremely difficult to move forward and there's also an unimaginably low temperature. Even a LV-5 level 1 adventurer will be frozen stiff and their body will become sluggish. They can barely exert 70% of their combat strength. As for those below LV-5, there's a possibility that they will be frozen into ice directly. As soon as these words came out, Leafia, who was only LV-3, turned pale. Noah, on the other hand, frowned and looked at the tunnel in front of them. If the 59th floor is really that cold, then it's impossible that we didn't feel a little cold standing in front of the tunnel, right? That's why I think it's a little strange. Finn touched his chin. Could it be that the influx of those new monsters caused some changes on the 59th floor? Not necessarily. Noah shook his head. Maybe the environment on the 59th floor itself will change? The environment itself will change? Tiona blinked. Is that even possible? That's impossible, right? Tiona said doubtfully. I've never heard of any floor's environment changing. Nothing is impossible. Noah shrugged. Even the ability to ignore floors has appeared, an entire race of enhancers, and monsters that move to other floors have appeared. With so many unbelievable things happening, what else is impossible? Both Tiona and Tiorn were speechless. You're right. Riveria closed her eyes. We're the ones who keep saying that common sense above the 50th floor is useless here. That's right. Gareth lifted his battle axe and said the same thing. In this way, no matter how inconceivable it is, it wouldn't be strange. Everyone fell silent. However, not long after, a rough voice interrupted everyone's silence. What's the point of thinking so much? Bote coldly snorted and directly said. Either you go down or scram. We're already here. Is there a third choice? His words were crude, but his reasoning was not. Bert's statement was indeed correct. However, Noah said so. It's not that there's no third choice. Huh? Everyone was stunned. Under everyone's stunned gaze, Noah curled his lips and smiled. We can also learn from those cannon dragons and directly blast open the vertical hole leading to the 59th floor on the 58th floor. That way, we can at least peek at the movements of the floors below and decide whether to go down or not. As soon as this statement came out, everyone was speechless. Is your brain filled with boiling water? Bote couldn't help but yell. Do you think it's so easy to open a hole between floors? Even the magic of an old lady can't do that, right? I can't guarantee that I can do it. Riveria opened her eyes. She seemed to be very dissatisfied with Bote calling her an old lady, but her serious personality made her answer honestly. The cannon dragon is a monster specialized in cannon fire, so the power of the cannon fire is amazing. In terms of firepower alone, I shouldn't be able to compete with the cannon dragon. As she said this, Riveria's tone suddenly changed. However, if it's Noah Doria, he should be able to do it, right? That one sentence made everyone reveal a somewhat strange expression. TSK, Bote made a very explicit sound of disgust and spoke in a very displeased manner. Why are you mentioning that bastard? What? Are you jealous again? Tiona giggled and teased. Because you can't do something that little brother Noah can do, so you're upset? It's none of your business. Bote looked as if his tail had been stepped on and exploded. Continue playing with your big double-edged sword. Don't talk too much. Bote's stampeding appearance immediately made everyone laugh. Only Leafia stared at Noah with eyes full of resentment. This caused Noah to feel a chill down his spine and he muttered in his heart. Did I offend you again? Just as the atmosphere between them started to relax, AIC stared at the entrance of the passageway in front of her, looking as though she had lost her soul. Noah was the first to notice the abnormality of this girl who was usually silent and kept her presence to a minimum. He asked in confusion. What's wrong? AIC glanced at Noah and continued to stare at the tunnel in front of her. Her eyes began to ripple. Then, AIC clutched her chest and muttered in confusion. There's a very strange feeling. A very strange feeling? What kind of feeling is that? When this thought flashed through Noah's mind, two voices that only he could hear suddenly sounded. Master. Aster suddenly spoke. I also have a strange feeling. The same goes for this concubine, Athena suddenly spoke up as well. It feels like there's something familiar yet strange in front of this tunnel. To be more precise, it should be below. Hearing Aster and Athena's voices, Noah raised his eyebrows and finally looked at the tunnel in front of him. Noah's intuition told him. In front of this tunnel, there was the answer to the puzzle that appeared after entering the 51st floor. The reason for the emergence of the strange larvae monster might be in front of him. Understanding this, Noah closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they had turned into calmness. Finn. Noah suddenly said. Let's move forward. Finn turned his head and looked at Noah. After seeing Noah's calm expression, he nodded. Our goal is the 59th floor. Finn smiled. Since we're already here, there's no reason to retreat. Finn then raised his hand. Let's go. Okay. Everyone responded loudly. Only AIC was still in a daze. She seemed to be very concerned about the strange feeling that suddenly appeared in her heart. Under such circumstances, a hand suddenly rested on AIC's head. AIC was suddenly startled and turned her head. "Don't think too much." Noah met AIC's gaze and said, "I'm here." Hearing such a short sentence that gave her a sense of security, AIC's heart unbelievably calmed down. The group of people exchanged glances with each other. Soon after, they suddenly charged forward. This was an equally huge cavern. The scale was more magnificent than the 58th floor directly above. The direction of vision also gave a feeling that it was more spacious than the 58th floor. Inside the huge cave, a lush green forest almost filled the entire space. On the ground, there was a verdant grassland, and there were many colorful flowers. The environment could not be described as not beautiful. At the edge of this sealed cavern, on the surrounding rock walls, vines hung all over the high walls, forming a green wall. On top of the wall, countless flower buds of various sizes hung down like silkworm cocoons. It gave the illusion that something was growing inside. This is the 59th floor? In the passage that connected to the 58th floor, Tiona and Tiorn looked at the vibrant scene in front of them, dumbfounded. "Finn," Bert said in a doubtful tone. "Are you sure this is the Ice River Zone?" Finn did not answer. Instead, he frowned and fell into a deep thought. Noah, on the other hand, noticed another scene. Chapter 2051. When the adventurers of Loki's clan were stunned by the environment in front of them, Noah suddenly stepped forward, came to the only road in the dense forest, and squatted down. Noah's action immediately attracted everyone's attention. Only then did the three leaders, Finn, Riveria, and Gareth, discover it. On the forest road where Noah squatted down, there was some viscous purple-black liquid. "This is..." Riveria's eyes slowly narrowed. "The corrosive liquid of the larvae-type monster?" "No, it's not corrosive liquid, it should be body fluid." Finn came to Noah's side and squatted down as well. After looking at the viscous liquid on the ground, he made such a judgment. It seems that those larvae-type monsters really came to this floor and went forward along the forest road, heading somewhere. If one looked carefully, they would be able to find it. On the only forest road that was opened up, there was a lot of viscous purple-black liquid. The purple-black liquid formed a long drag mark, spreading along the forest road. Therefore, Finn's speculation was 100% convincing. Regardless of the new type of monster, there seems to be no trace of other monsters anywhere here. Gareth carried the battle axe, looked around, and frowned. Could it be that the larvae-type monsters took the magic stones and killed them all? No one could answer this question. Everyone could only be silent one after another, looking at each other, completely not knowing how to react. The 59th floor of the underground city. Stepping into this floor, Loki's clan officially updated their arrival floor record. For this, everyone was ready to fight to the death. As a result, after stepping into this floor, not only did they not encounter a single monster, but even the environment was very different from the records left by Zeus's clan. As the saying goes, there must be something wrong when things are abnormal. Such a strange situation made everyone's heart unable to relax at all. Instead, it tightened. Finn closed his eyes. After a while, he cast his gaze on Noah. "What do you think?" "What else can I think? It must be unusual, right?" Noah's tone was rather relaxed. "No matter what, if we continue to move forward, we will definitely be able to obtain an answer. This is my opinion. Therefore, there is no need to change our approach." Finn smiled and stood up. He pulled out the spear on his back and pointed it at the forest in front of him. "Comrades, let's continue forward." Everyone nodded in agreement. And so, with Tiona and Tyan in the lead, the party advanced along the single path in a formation no different from before. The surroundings were eerily quiet. The silence did not match the dungeon at all, causing Leafia's hand to tremble as she held onto her magic wand. She was obviously extremely nervous. At the side, Noah constantly surveyed the surroundings, his brows tightly knitted together. Although nothing was happening at the moment, Noah, with his sharp senses, could still sense that the atmosphere in the air was a little strange. The more they moved forward, the more they felt as though they were stepping into a quagmire. The extremely sticky air made Noah's pitch-black eyes flicker slightly, and he couldn't help but quicken his pace. As he quickened his pace, everyone also unknowingly quickened their pace along with Noah and passed through the forest. Not long after, the monotonous trees in the surroundings began to disappear, and the field of vision in front of them widened. Noah and the rest walked out of the forest and stepped into a gray land. Looking at the vast wilderness in front of them, they were all speechless. Pitter-patter. Pitter-patter, amidst the sounds of viscous objects squeezing each other, countless yellow-green meatballs gathered together in the endless gray wilderness in front of them, covering the entire land. A dense group of larva-like monsters wriggled their bodies while surrounding a massive object, as though they were the subjects of a king. Their elastic but disgusting bodies wriggled up and down, making one shudder in fear. And the massive object that was surrounded by a large group of larva-like monsters was a creature that made one doubt their own eyes. It had beautiful and lustrous long hair draped over its back. It had slender arms, a graceful figure, and a goddess-like appearance. Its body was covered with a colorful coat, but its skin was as green as a plant. Although it had a beauty that could take one's breath away, it didn't have any life, just like a doll. Although the skin color was a little strange, there was no doubt that it was an extremely beautiful girl. However, such a beautiful girl, only the upper body belonged to the category of human, but the lower body was a real monster. It was a lower body made up of huge petals and countless tentacles. With a goddess-like upper body and a monster-like lower body, the massive object that was beautiful and ugly, sacred and evil stood in the middle of a group of larva-like monsters, as if it had fallen into a deep sleep. Its body was wrapped in vines, and its eyes were tightly closed, looking very peaceful. However, during its sleep, the countless tentacles on the lower body of the behemoth kept wriggling, reaching out to the surrounding larva-like monsters. Whenever the tentacle reached in front of a larva-like monster, the larva-like monster would open its mouth. Then, the tentacle would directly drill into the larva-like monster's mouth, and after a while, it would pull out a magic stone. That was undoubtedly the magic stone of the larva-like monster. After losing the magic stone equivalent to life and soul, the larva-like monsters whose magic stones were taken away immediately turned into ashes and piled up on the ground. And those magic stones were stuffed by the tentacles into the petal-like lower body. There, a big mouth covered with mucus and fangs opened like a man-eating flower, constantly swallowing the magic stones that were stuffed over. The scene beyond everyone's imagination made everyone in Loki's clan fall into a state of shock, and they couldn't recover for a long time. I finally understand. Noah sighed. I understand why those larva-like monsters are like strengtheners, plundering the magic stones of other monsters, and why they collectively migrate to other floors. Unfortunately, I also understand. Finn took a deep breath and stared straight ahead. The larva-like monsters will plunder the magic stones of other monsters, not because they are all strengtheners, but because there are other existences controlling them, letting them go to other floors to plunder magic stones, and then return here to contribute the strengthened magic stones to the controller. This was the reason why the larva-like monsters would collectively plunder the magic stones of other monsters, and why the larva-like monsters would collectively migrate to other floors. In the final analysis, it was not because the larva-like monsters were all beyond common sense, but because there was an existence beyond common sense controlling them. That was the behemoth that was surrounded by the larva-like monsters. A female monster that was different from the larva-like monsters, but was controlling the larva-like monsters. Seeing the large group of larva-like monsters constantly contributing the strengthened magic stones to the female monster, everyone shuddered. That monster, has it been devouring the strengthened magic stones with this efficiency all the time? Tiona's lips were a little pale. Then how powerful did it get? Does it even need to be said? Tiona bit her lip, stared fiercely at the behemoth of the female monster, and said so. If there is a floor master on the 59th floor, then it's her. The cannon dragon on the 58th floor was as high as LV5. The female monster that occupied the 59th floor, according to the calculation method of the floor master, was 2 levels higher than the monsters on this floor. In other words, the female monster was at least a LV7 floor master. It might even be higher than that. Just when everyone understood the meaning behind this, AIC stared blankly at the female monster. She suddenly shook her head as if she had lost her soul. No. No, AIC's strange behavior attracted everyone's attention. However, before the crowd could react, AIC abruptly spoke. Quick. Let's go. This sentence was greeted by the 2 sword spirits that only Noah could hear. No. It's too late. As soon as the voice fell, a shocking sense of horror suddenly descended. Chapter 2052. At this moment, everyone, including Noah, raised their heads abruptly and focused their gazes in front of them. Then, everyone saw it. In the vast wilderness covered in grayish-black ashes, the female monster that had been devouring the magic stones of the larvae abruptly stopped. Immediately after, the upper body of the female monster that was wrapped in vines suddenly trembled. Under the gaze of everyone present, she slowly raised her head and opened her eyes. What kind of eyes were they? There were no pupils. There was no iris. He did not have the slightest bit of vigor that an intelligent creature should have. That was the pair of eyes the female monster had when she opened her eyes. With such a pair of eyes, the beautiful face of the female monster suddenly burst into a smile. In the next second, cries that sounded like the cries of a baby rang out throughout the entire world. It was as if the cries had turned into invisible sound waves, shaking up everything in the surroundings. That voice had the beauty of a ballad, but it also had the ugliness of a howl. It was filled with a holy aura, but it also gave off a filthy feeling. It was very contradictory. And it was this incomparably contradictory cry that turned into the most ear-piercing shriek in the world, transmitted into the ears of everyone present. Tiona, Tiony, and Leafia immediately let out sorrowful cries. Finn, Riveria, Gareth, and Bert involuntarily covered their ears and squeezed out a groan from their throats. The ear-piercing screams were like invisible sharp weapons, constantly stabbing at the adventurers of Loki's clan, making everyone unable to help but show uncomfortable expressions. Only Noah and AIC stared at the shrieking female monster. Their expressions changed abruptly. AIC's expression changed abruptly because even though the shriek didn't make her feel uncomfortable, it made her blood flow faster and her heart beat faster. That reaction was as if it was resonating with the woman's voice. AIC could no longer maintain her usual calmness and fell into an uncontrollable state. As for Noah, the reason why his expression changed was because of Aster's words. Master. Aster's voice resounded in Noah's heart. Those are immortal essences. Immortal spirit? Was that an immortal spirit? Looking at the female monster who had the upper body of a goddess and the lower body of a monster, Noah was almost subconsciously speechless. She had the 2 elements of beauty and ugliness, holiness and evil. Could such a monster be an immortal? What kind of joke was this? Immortal spirits were the avatars of gods. In the era where the gods had yet to descend, the duty of the fairies was to listen to the voices of the gods in the heavenly realm, accept the will of the gods, find the heroes of the lower realm, assist and help them, and crusade against all the sins and evil in the world. To put it bluntly, the fairies were the predecessor of the grace bestowed by the gods to the people of the lower realm. In the era where the gods had yet to descend and the humans of the lower realm had yet to receive the grace of the gods, the fairies were the ones who bestowed the humans with power, magic, and even transformed into weapons, giving birth to the existence of heroes. That kind of existence was the thing in front of him that was neither human nor strange? I know you don't want to believe it, but it should be the truth. Athena seemed to have seen through Noah's thoughts and said, You said before that the fairies of this world and the elemental fairies of the elemental fairies have the same effect and can be categorized as the same existence. If the woman in front of us is really an immortal spirit, then it can explain why I and the Holy Sword fairies felt a familiar yet unfamiliar aura. But, the fairy in front of us is no longer pure. Aster said with a very unique and emotionless voice. The monsters of this world can increase their power by devouring magic stones and become the so-called enhanced species. Then, it is very likely that in the past, a fairy was devoured by a monster and fell into depravity and madness, just like the magical fairies of the elemental fairies. The filthy fairy. That was the true identity of the woman in front of him. He didn't expect such a monster to appear in the buried city. Athena suddenly said. You're right. You're right. You're right. After a monster swallows a magic stone, it will become a strengthened species. In order to pursue greater power, it will continue to attack other monsters. Then, after swallowing a fairy essence and obtaining the power of the fairy essence, what will a monster become after swallowing a fairy essence? Noah understood the meaning of her words almost instantly. Just like how your two contracted fairies can sense each other's existence, the other party should also be able to sense the existence of your two contracted fairies, right? Drake explained Noah's situation. You're being watched, partner. With that, the female monster turned her head and stared at Noah. No. To be more precise, she was staring at Noah and AIC. Soon after, the female body cried out in joy as she let out a pleasant voice. Can't find you guys. All of a sudden, apart from Noah, everyone present felt as if their hearts were being squeezed tightly by an invisible hand. Their eyes suddenly widened. The sense of terror in the air suddenly reached its peak. Noah's eyes narrowed and he suddenly shouted. Disperse. Everyone present shuddered at the same time. Immediately after, apart from Leafia who did not have time to react and was hugged by Noah, the rest of the first-level adventurers all scattered at an alarming speed as though they were conditioned reflexes. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Almost at the same time, a series of sharp air-piercing sounds were heard in the sky. It was the sound of the filthy immortal fairy's tentacles turning into spears that pierced through the air and shot down like raindrops. The countless tentacles shrouded down like a torrential downpour and landed heavily on the spot where Noah and the others were a second ago. Bang 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 bang. A series of explosive sounds rang out. The tentacles that had turned into long spears that descended from the sky carried a terrifying power. They suddenly shattered the ground and pierced through the rock plates, setting off a violent gust of wind. Mixed with a large amount of sand, they shook in all directions. A terrifying shockwave swept out, causing the people who had scattered out of reflex to be affected. One by one, they were blown away, smashing heavily onto the ground. After rolling a few times, they flipped over and jumped up. Noah, who was protecting Leafia, was also affected by the violent shock wave. However, he relaxed his body and drifted away like a lone boat that met a huge wave. He only landed on the ground when the shock wave stopped expanding. As a result, apart from Noah and Leafia, the rest of the first-rank adventurers were reduced to such a sorry state in a single encounter. Ha 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 ha. The female monster seemed to be amused by the sorry state of AIC and the others. Like an innocent little girl, she let out a bell-like laughter. With such laughter, the filthy immortal fairy glanced at Noah and then at AIC and shouted excitedly. Eat, you, them. Athena's words hit the bull's eye. The filthy immortal fairy really intended to eat Aster and Athena. Perhaps the reason why the filthy immortal fairy suddenly woke up was because she sensed Aster and Athena, who were almost the same kind of immortal fairy. Noah had been targeted. And it wasn't just Noah. Even AIC had been targeted. The sense of terror that permeated the air increased once again. You. AIC looked at the filthy immortal fairy with eyes that had never wavered before. Why, seeing AIC's abnormal behavior, Tiona, Leafia, and Bert didn't think much of it. However, Finn, Riveria, and Gareth seemed to know something and gritted their teeth. The female immortal fairy turned her gaze and stared at AIC, smiling happily. Here. Become one with me. After saying that, countless tentacles once again turned into a violent storm. Like a deadly poisonous net, they fell from the sky and enveloped the area. Chapter 2053. Bang! In the middle of the vast cave, in a gray wilderness, a terrifying shockwave violently shook the surroundings following the sound of an explosion. Like a typhoon, it blew through the forest, causing the trees to sway wildly. In the center of the shock wave, the first-level adventurers of Loki's clan were dodging the thick tentacles falling from the sky in a sorry state. Every place they stood was smashed by the tentacles with terrifying power, shattering one piece after another. Suddenly, in the vast wilderness, the roar of the tentacles smashing the ground reverberated endlessly, like thunder falling on the ground, extremely shocking people's eyes. All the first-level adventurers of Loki's clan desperately dodged. It was not easy for them to stabilize their bodies. Relying on their LV5 and LV6 ability values, they barely dodged all the attacks. During this period, the gigantic female monster had been letting out cheerful and pleasant laughter. She didn't show any mercy when she attacked. Her thick tentacles seemed to have turned into cannonballs at this very moment, constantly bombarding the surroundings, stirring up waves of impact and sand. That expression was simply like a playful girl playing with water. Perhaps, for that filthy fairy, the battle in front of her was actually no different from playing around? Under such circumstances, the first-level adventurers of Loki's clan found it more and more difficult to dodge. Everyone. Being held in Noah's arms, Leafia, who could smoothly avoid the bombardment of the storm without any effort, looked at her companions who were in danger and could not help but cry out anxiously. Noah held Leafia tightly in his arms, while dodging the whipped shadows of the tentacles that attacked fiercely, while looking at the group of Loki's clan members who were finding it more and more difficult to dodge. His empty hand slowly clenched, and traces of magic fluctuations emerged on it. "What's wrong?" Drake spoke. "Are you going to make a move?" Hearing this, Noah hesitated for a moment. After a while, he actually dispersed the magic power gathered and whispered such a sentence. "Wait a little longer. They haven't reached their limits yet." "Is that so?" Drake said noncommittally. "You treat those people really well." "Not bad. Is it not bad to leave him in the lurch?" If it were another situation, he definitely wouldn't say that. However, if Noah did not make a move here, it was indeed not bad. In the dungeon, there was an unwritten rule. That is, you can't take the prey of others without permission. The monsters that adventurers dealt with were not only a source of wealth, but also factors that could make them stronger. After all, the adventurers who received the favor needed to kill monsters to gain experience points, which could be used to strengthen their ability points. The reason why Noah hadn't made a move all this time and took the initiative to kill the enemy was because killing monsters didn't benefit him at all. However, for the people of Loki's clan, it was a period of experience points that could make them stronger. Leaving all the monsters to AIC's group to deal with would allow them to reap the best rewards. If all of them were to be dealt with by Noah, it would be harming others without benefiting himself. It was precisely because he saw through Noah's thoughts that Finn told Noah before that if it was really necessary, then don't worry about them and just make a move. Now, in the face of the current world's peak monsters whose strength was enough to surpass LV7, the adventurers of Loki's clan were already forced into a dead end. However, Noah still thought that it was not the time to make a move yet. When Finn and the others reached their limits, the experience points would be the most precious. Thinking of this, Noah still decided not to make a move and wait for a while. With this observation, before the adventurers of Loki's clan had time to erupt, the Immortal of Filth took the initiative to erupt. "Fire, come!" With such a light and pleasant voice, a huge magic circle suddenly unfolded in front of the Immortal of Filth. What? Seeing this scene, everyone of Loki's clan was shocked. Impossible. Leafia also exclaimed in shock. What did they see? They saw that the monster was using magic. How? How is this possible? Riveria showed a rare look of shock. How can a brutal monster that follows its instincts cast a spell that requires a focused mind to control the reins of magic and chant the spell? Magic was the power of knowledge. This was a famous saying that the people of this world recognized. Whether it was the chanting of spells or the control of magic, it was inseparable from the support of knowledge. Therefore, mastering magic had always been a privilege of the people of the lower realm, and there had never been a monster that could use magic. However, the immortal of filth in front of them seemed to want to subvert everyone's understanding, and with a pleasant voice, it kept chanting. What's more, it was an extraordinary singing. Roar, roar, fire vortex, red lotus cliff, roar of karmic fire, borrow the power of the sudden strong wind, seal the world, burning sky, burning earth, burning ocean, burning spring, burning mountain, burning life, turn everything into scorched earth, fire the cannon of anger and sigh, pay the price with the life of my beloved hero. The immortal of filth's voice seemed to be singing, and it fluently chanted long paragraphs of incantation, causing everyone in Loki's clan to be shocked. There were two reasons for the shock. One was the incantation that the immortal of filth was chanting. That was obviously a chant for a super long text. Using such a long incantation to release magic, the power was definitely shocking. At least, although Riveria's magic also had a long chant, the scale was not as big as the immortal of filth's. In addition, the immortal of filth's chanting speed was shockingly fast. Even Riveria needed a long time to chant the incantation, but the filthy immortal used less than 3 seconds to chant the large number of incantations. This made everyone realize something. Death was coming. Riveria. Finn's voice lost its calm for the first time. Open the barrier. No. Riveria also lost her composure and shouted loudly. It's too late. Hearing this, Tiona and Tiorn showed a frightened expression. In the name of the executor, the name given to me is Flame Essence, incarnation of flames, queen of flames. In the next moment, the immortal of filth finished the last syllable of the incantation, and a terrifying magic power rose from her body. No. Leafia's pretty face turned pale. Damn it. Bert growled. This is too much of a joke. Gareth's lips trembled. Under such circumstances, the female monster abruptly smiled and softly chanted the true name of the super-long chant spell. Firestorm. Fiery red color dyed the entire world. Boom. Accompanied by a violent explosion, a terrifying flame burst out from the magic array in front of the immortal of filth. It turned into a red storm that swept out with shocking heat. The fiery red high-temperature storm almost became a tornado that reached the ceiling of the cave and shook in all directions like the explosion of a star. The gray earth was burned to ashes. The forest in the distance spontaneously combusted. Under the expansion of the red storm, an unimaginably high temperature rushed toward the level 1 adventurers of Loki's clan like a heat wave, and everyone stood rooted to the ground in a daze. Soon after, a violent firestorm swept over as if it was the end of the world. It's over. No one knew who murmured this. However, almost at the same time, a figure dashed out. Instead of retreating, she rushed toward the terrifying firestorm and reached out her hand. Clang! A dazzling white light suddenly bloomed. One hand held a sword, and the other hand shone with a dazzling white light. AIC suddenly charged out. Her crystal-clear eyes were filled with determination as she faced the terrifying storm of flames. In the next moment, the dazzling white light and the violent firestorm collided. Boom! An astonishing boom resounded, shattering the surrounding rock walls of the vast cavern. The white light and the firestorm collided in the center of the cave, illuminating the surroundings. Chapter 2054. Woo 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 woo. In front of the raging waves of flames, AIC raised her hand that was shining with a dazzling white light. She continuously refined her mental strength, causing the brilliant white light to become more and more dazzling. Gradually, it covered the surrounding fiery red color. AIC. Seeing that AIC was able to withstand the destructive firestorm alone, the Grade 1 adventurers of the Loki clan finally reacted. Noah was also looking at AIC. His eyes lit up when he saw the dazzling white light erupting from AIC's body and withstanding the violent waves of fire. That girl can already use crush to such an extent? Perhaps it was because of the eruption before a great catastrophe? All in all, the crushing magic that AIC had used up almost all of her mental strength to cast was so dazzling that it could light up the entire cavern that was bigger than Eulalia. The dazzling white light swallowed the storm of flames bit by bit. Finally, it completely enveloped the violent storm of flames. Whang! A trembling sound suddenly rang out. The fiery storm that was covered by the dazzling white light was divided equally by the white lines that suddenly appeared. Bang! In the midst of the explosion, the firestorm that was covered in white lines suddenly exploded, turning into a wave of fiery red wind. Mixed with sparks that filled the sky, it spread out. AIC, who had just managed to shatter the firestorm with great difficulty, was unable to dodge the incoming shockwave and was blown away. Miss AIC. Rafia was shocked. Tiana and Tyan charged forward, leaping into the air and catching AIC, who was flying backwards like a cannonball, in their arms. However, the force that sent AIC flying was very powerful. Even though the Amazon sisters were LV5, they were still pushed back fiercely in the instant they caught AIC in their arms. They only stopped after sliding back for more than 10 meters. Ugh! Both Tiona and Tiona let loose a muffled groan as their slender arms became slightly numb. Cough cough. AIC directly knelt on the ground and coughed a few times. Her beautiful face had almost lost all color. It wasn't all caused by the injury. It was also due to the large consumption of mental strength. However, in the end, AIC relied on herself to block the terrifying firestorm and saved everyone's lives. The Immortal of Filth seemed to be very dissatisfied with the result and let out a tantrum cry. Seeing this scene, Finn, Gareth, and Bert rushed to the front of AIC, Tiona, and protected the three girls behind them. And pointed their weapons at the female monster with vigilance. AIC, Riveria went to AIC's side and squatted down and supported her. Are you okay? AIC said weakly. Her eyes were filled with unconcealable exhaustion. I'm fine, I can't tell at all, Riveria said bluntly. I'll reply to you first. The elixirs are here. Leafia hurriedly carried a large backpack and ran to AIC's side. She hurriedly rummaged through the high-grade elixirs and high-grade magic elixirs and stuffed them all to AIC. Miss AIC, hurry up and heal. AIC heard Leafia's words and knew that now wasn't the time to be stubborn. She accepted the 2 bottles of elixirs and began to heal. However, it was obvious that the enemy wasn't even willing to give AIC time to heal. "Oh Earth, roar," the melodious voice that sounded like a ballad rang out once more. The adventurers of Loki's clan widened their eyes in shock. Shortly after, a pitch-black magical formation unfolded beneath the Immortal of Filth and released pitch-black mana. Undoubtedly, the Immortal of Filth had just used a powerful spell a second ago. Logically speaking, even if she still had some mental strength left, there should be a slight cooldown time after casting such a powerful spell. However, the Immortal of Filth overturned common sense once more. She didn't need the cooldown time after casting the spell and began to chant once more, causing a surge of mana to rise. Old hag. Bert couldn't help but curse because he was too shaken. Stop daydreaming. Hurry up and activate the barrier. In fact, before Bert even spoke, Riveria had already begun to move. Dance, Fairy of the Air, Master of the Light, I have made a pact with the guardian god of the forest. I hope you will play the song of the earth to envelop us and protect us. I implore you to turn into a giant wall of light to protect us. As if to make up for her previous loss of composure, Riveria quickly constructed an incantation. She closed her eyes and raised her wand, causing the magical formation to revolve beneath her. However, the enemy also displayed the same extraordinary chant that she had just performed. Come, 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 shell of earth, artifact of black steel, hammer of shining stars. With the contract of creation, I command you to reverse, burn the sky, shatter the ground, build a bridge, combine into one. Descend the axe of the sky, the calamity of destruction. This time, the immortal of filth's chant was clearly much shorter than before. It had changed from an extremely long chant to a long chant. This meant that although the next attack wasn't as powerful as the previous one, it was much faster than before. In the name of the executor, I command the name Goblin, embodiment of Earth, Queen of Earth. The immortal of filth's incantation speed was astonishing, easily surpassing Riveria, who was also chanting a long chant. In the end, the immortal of filth still managed to cast her spell before Riveria did. Meteor shower. The light that blossomed from the pitch-black magical formation beneath the immortal of filth suddenly converged into a beam and soared into the sky, disappearing into the ceiling. Instantly, the ceiling of the huge cavern turned into a pitch-black night sky. Then, a meteor shower enveloped in black light appeared. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Sharp piercing sounds rang out, causing meteors to fall from the sky, turning into pitch-black streams of light that enveloped the area below like raindrops. In the nick of time, Riveria promptly released her own defensive magic. Dimension interception. A transparent light screen rose in front of everyone, protecting everyone behind the barrier. Then, the meteors directly fell on the transparent light screen. Bang 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 bang. Explosions rang out one after another. The heavy meteor shower bombarded the transparent light curtain and exploded, setting off waves of astonishing flames and shockwaves. The scene that seemed to be constantly bombarded by artillery fire made everyone behind the transparent light screen break out in cold sweat. On the other hand, Riveria gritted her teeth. Just like AIC, she continuously refined her mental strength into mana and infused it into her defensive magic, holding on bitterly. So far, Riveria's defensive spell had saved her companions in the clan countless times. That defensive spell, called Dimension Interception, was famous for its sturdiness and had never been breached. Unfortunately, today, Riveria's fortress was destined to be breached once. Crack. An incomparably subtle but exceptionally ear-piercing cracking sound came from the transparent light screen. At this moment, everyone's complexion changed. Just when everyone couldn't help but despair, a heavy voice abruptly interrupted. Boost! The moment that heavy voice sounded, an incomparably malevolent gauntlet was placed on Riveria's shoulder. Transfer. On the back of the gauntlet, a sparkling and translucent jade flashed with light. At the same time, Riveria felt a powerful force suddenly flowing into her body, fiercely increasing her strength by a large margin. Clang! The transparent light screen standing in front of everyone suddenly blossomed with dazzling light and became a lot thicker. Bang 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 bang. The meteor shower bombarded the light screen from the sky, setting off terrifying flames and shockwaves, but it was unable to shake the light screen. This situation made everyone's spirits rise as they looked at Riveria's side. Chapter 2055. At some unknown time, Noah had silently appeared beside Riveria. His gaze was still fixed on that huge female monster, but his hand was on Riveria's body. However, in that hand, a sinister, dragon-claw-like scarlet-red hand covered everything. It tightly gripped Riveria's shoulder, and the jade on the back of the hand blossomed with radiance. That's... Aze, Tiona, Tiani, and Leafia recognized the gauntlet almost immediately. That's... Although Finn, Riveria, and Gareth had never seen a gauntlet before, they were still able to determine what it was based on the current situation. What's that? Bert was the only one who didn't know what was going on, but he understood one thing. That was, with Noah's help, the defensive power of Riveria's barrier greatly increased, blocking the powerful magic of the filthy immortal fairy. Is that why Finn values him so much? The way Bert looked at Noah had already changed. However, the immortal of filth was dissatisfied. Seeing that her magic was blocked once again, the filthy immortal's beautiful face finally twisted. She let out a sharp shriek and released an extremely strong negative emotion. As the immortal of filth shrieked, countless black shadows began to appear behind it. It was a piece of yellow-green meat covered with mottled patterns. Countless larvae responded to the filthy immortal fairy's call one after another, squirming their bodies of different sizes as they surged forward. The scene of the dense yellow-green meat swarming over made all of the Loki clan members bite their lips. Even Finn was considering whether he should retreat here, return to the camp, and end this expedition. In the end, Noah was the only one who raised his arm that was covered by a ferocious crimson gauntlet. He stared straight at the larva-type army that was surging forward and spoke indifferently. "Let's go." It was a very short sentence, but it made everyone stunned. "If you don't have enough power, then I'll lend it to you." Noah stared closely at the immortal of filth and said so. "You just have to be bold and go. Leave that immortal of filth to me." After saying that, Noah extended the gauntlet that had been accumulating and multiplying in number to the front. Transfer. The heavy but exceptionally clear voice made the crimson gauntlet blossom with a brilliant light that enveloped everyone around it. Under the shroud of that light, everyone felt it very clearly. An extremely powerful force ran through their bodies and flowed throughout their bodies. The powerful force brought an instant feeling of omnipotence, making every adventurer of the Loki clan close their eyes and feel the power flowing in their bodies. When they opened their eyes again, all of them were burning with fighting spirit. There was no need for words. No need for extra motivation. The powerful force flowing in their bodies made every adventurer of Loki's clan feel hot all over, and their fighting spirit instantly rose to the peak. Go! Following Finn's order, except for Riveria and Leafia, the rest of the adventurers stomped on the ground and rushed out. Boo, 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 boo. Finn, Gareth, Bert, Tiona, and Tiona all roared and bravely charged into the group of monsters. A's body was surrounded by a whirlwind-like whirlwind. Her pair of crystal-clear eyes flickered with a frightening expression as she also charged into the group of monsters. On one side was an endless army of larvae. On the other side was an adventurer group whose power had skyrocketed. The two sides met after a second and launched a fierce confrontation. The spear in Finn's hand at this moment turned into a windmill that swept away thousands of troops. The battle axe in Gareth's hand turned into a heavy hammer that thundered like thunder. The pair of silver boots on Bert's feet turned into flashes of lightning at this moment. The dual blades and battle axes in Tiona's hands also turned into raging waves of wind and rain at this moment. The group of level 1 adventurers charged into the army of larvae. The tips of their spears, axes, boots, and swords repeatedly fell on the bodies of the larvae and beheaded them on the spot. Poochie 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 poochie. The sound of silk being torn apart constantly echoed, causing the larvae to fall one after another. Bang 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 bang. The larvae that fell immediately exploded one after another, causing purplish-black corrosive liquid to spray in all directions. Finn's group, whose power had skyrocketed, completely ignored the corrosive liquid splashing towards them. They charged into the group of monsters at an astonishing speed. Even if the corrosive liquid touched their bodies, it would immediately be blocked by a layer of faint green or white light. It couldn't touch Finn's group at all. The green and white light were naturally the magic of Riveria and Leafia. Echo, pass on the wishes, robes of the forest, holy grail of exorcism, transform into a shield. The two elven archmages raised their wands high up as magic circles revolved beneath their feet. Their bodies rippled with refined mana as they chanted pleasant incantations with light voices while buffing Finn's group with defensive spells one after another, protecting their companions as they charged into the horde of monsters. Under such circumstances, Finn, Gareth, Bert, Tiona, and Tiona's group charged even more fearlessly. The weapons in their hands danced like bolts of lightning as they beheaded one monster after another. As for A's, who was surrounded by whirlwinds, she didn't even need to cast defensive spells. She relied on the invisible winds that wrapped around her body to deflect the corrosive liquid from the larvae's self-destruction. The thin sword in her hand turned into streaks of silver light that slashed in all directions. For a time, the endless army of monsters couldn't even touch the people of Loki's clan. They were killed several times by AIC's group, and their numbers decreased sharply. At this moment, Ace, Finn, Gareth, Bert, Tiona, and Tyogni had all become meat grinders, shredding all the monsters in their path. In less than 30 seconds, they had killed 1/10 of the larvae army. Ah! The female monster let out a furious shriek. As if she couldn't bear to watch any longer, a terrifying amount of magic power surged from her body. Fire, come! That was the beginning of a long chant spell called Firestorm. Roar, roar, roar. Fire vortex, red lotus cliff, karmic roar, borrowing the power of the sudden strong wind to seal the world, the burning sky, the burning earth, the burning ocean, the burning springs, the burning mountains, the burning life, turning everything into scorched earth, setting off the horn of anger and sigh, paying the price with the life of my beloved hero. She began to chant again, and the mana that rose from the female monster became more and more terrifying. A huge red magic circle flashed in front of her, and like the muzzle of a cannon, it was aimed at the Rockies who were charging in the midst of the monsters. It was a pity that no matter how fast the Fairy of Filth's chant was, it still needed time. Even if the Fairy of Filth could shorten the long chant that would take most sorcerers a long time to chant, it still couldn't compare to an instantaneous spell. Thus, as the Fairy of Filth spat out a ballad-like chant, a strange phenomenon occurred. Whoosh! A thick beam of magic power suddenly shot into the sky, streaking across space and landing heavily on the magic circle in front of the female monster. Bang! There was a flash and an explosion at the same time. The magic circle in front of the Fairy of Filth was cleanly shattered by the beam of magic power, turning into pieces of broken glass like a mirror. The Fairy of Filth's chant came to an abrupt end. She widened her eyes and looked in the direction of the beam of magic power. There, Noah raised a hand, his dark, deep eyes meeting the Fairy of Filth's shocked gaze. Magic power that was far more powerful than the Fairy of Filth surged from his body. Chapter 2056. Wang. The atmosphere began to tremble. The terrifying mana fluctuations turned into surging gales that continuously swirled within the huge cavern. With such a shocking amount of mana fluctuating all over his body, Noah slowly lowered his hands, and his body began to distort slightly. Sensing the terrifying movement, whether it was Ace, Finn, Gareth, Bert, Tiona, and Tiona who were charging in the group of monsters, or Riveria and Leafia who were chanting incantations, they all stopped what they were doing and looked over. Thus, everyone present clearly saw it. The appearance of the young man who was fluctuating with terrifying mana fluctuations began to change. That extremely ordinary face that did not have the slightest bit of outstanding features faded bit by bit. It was replaced by another face. It was a face that everyone in Eulalia was extremely familiar with. Bert's eyes suddenly widened to the limit when he saw that face, not to mention those who knew about it for the time being. At this moment, Noah finally returned to his original appearance. In order to change his appearance, not only did Noah constantly provide mana to support the transformation, but he also tried his best to suppress the circulation of mana in his body in order to eliminate his own aura and presence, so as to not expose his overly powerful aura. In this way, it was equivalent to letting Noah suppress most of his power. Now that Noah had slightly used his true form, the mana in his body could no longer be suppressed. It rapidly surged like a raging wave, causing Noah's aura and presence to skyrocket. He did not even maintain his transformation and returned to his original appearance. Under everyone's gaze, Noah met the Immortal of Filth's still astonished gaze and narrowed his eyes. "I don't know who you are, nor do I know why you were devoured by monsters and turned into this filthy appearance. But I know that if you still have your rationality before you were devoured, you must be in great pain to see yourself like this, right?" Noah said softly. "So, you can be free here." With that, the mana fluctuations that surged from Noah's body gradually began to transform into phosphorescent energy. The phosphorescent energy was like a flame that burned on Noah's body bit by bit until it became extremely violent and reached the ceiling of the cavern. That incomparably violent power caused everyone in Loki's clan to fall into shock. Then, everyone present realized what was going on. Noah was ready to crusade against the filthy immortal. He was going to crusade against a female monster that could even surpass Eulalia's most powerful LV7 magic power. Mr. Mr. Noah. Leafia could not help but speak up. Please wait. Don't. Noah did not turn his head, his voice was strong and powerful as he looked at the immortal. My opponent is just a fallen immortal. My Aster will never lose. Aster? Leafia was startled. Aster? Finn and the rest were stunned as well. Aster? AIC muttered the name softly. Aster? The immortal of filth also tilted his head and repeated the name of the strongest sword spirit like a parrot. Under such circumstances, Noah smiled indifferently. Open your eyes wide and see clearly. Noah raised one hand and said. What is a true immortal? On the back of Noah's hand, the crisscrossing sword imprint formed by the sword spirits suddenly lit up, bursting with a burst of dazzling light particles that suddenly appeared in the air and slowly floated out. The moment the light particles appeared, the immortal of filth's eyes widened once again. AIC, on the other hand, felt her heart beating faster than ever before. The blood in her body began to heat up, causing her starry eyes to ripple. Then, the light particles began to gather and gradually condensed into a human figure. A silvery white waist-length hair hung down softly. Her white skin was as smooth as a pearl. The hem of her dress swayed gently in the wind. A pair of mysterious eyes gradually opened, shining like gems. The petite elven girl appeared in the dazzling light and landed on the ground. That's... Finn, Riveria, Gareth, Bert, Tiona, Tyogni, and Rafia were all stunned. AIC's eyes couldn't help but waver. She looked straight at the petite elf girl and squeezed out two words with difficulty. Immortal essence, beautiful. Holy. Pure. Stainless. These words seemed to have been prepared for the girl who appeared in the light, and all of them gathered in that petite body. That's right. This was a true immortal. The immortal of filth looked at Aster in a trance, and his entire body began to tremble. The filthy immortal fairy's joyful cry echoed in the air like a roar. The female monster, who was in pursuit of great power and craved to devour immortal essence, instinctively felt that it was the most delicious food. Therefore, the filthy immortal spirit cried tears of joy. Aster. Aster. The filthy immortal fairy, on the other hand, repeated the name she had just learned in an innocent and happy voice. Eat you. Become one with me. Aster. Like a young girl chasing after her beloved, the filthy immortal spirit cast a burning gaze at Aster. Then, the filthy immortal spirit moved. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Tentacles turned into spears that covered the sky and suddenly fell from the sky. They mercilessly fell in the direction of Noah and Aster. Be careful. Everyone cried out in alarm. However, Noah only looked at the rain of spears, and his voice didn't waver in the slightest. Cold Queen of Steel, holy sword that slays demons and demons, turn into a sword of steel and bestow me with divine power. No one could understand the incantation that was written in the Elvish language. But it didn't matter. Because it was fine as long as Aster could understand it. Only Noah was allowed to chant the incantation to prove that he had formed a contract with the strongest sword spirit. I will not become one with you. Aster said expressionlessly. I only belong to my master. Aster's body flashed with a dazzling light, and turned into light particles that gathered in Noah's hand. As if catching a ray of light, Noah raised the shining sword in his hand and pointed it forward. Demon Slayer. The sword was silver in color, and the real name of the strongest sword spirit in the elemental world was engraved on the sword. It was a shining silver steel sword. Under the continuous infusion of divine power, the steel sword flashed with light. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The rain of spears fell from the sky like a torrential rain. Bang! Noah stomped on the ground and created a shockwave. Like riding the wind and breaking the waves, he advanced instead of retreating. He rushed toward the rain of spears that covered the sky. The distance between the two sides was closed in the blink of an eye. Clank! In the next moment, an unprecedentedly bright light illuminated the area. Ultimate Sword Technique. Form Breaker Ardent Flower Spiral Sword Dance Quadruple Slash. Noah released the ultimate sword technique that was used specifically against large-sized spirits and was powerful enough to annihilate demon god-level spirits. Poochie. 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 The quadruple slash turned into 4 streaks of sword light that pierced through the sky. Amidst crisp tearing sounds, the sword light cut off the tentacles and the petals on the monster's ugly lower body. Then, the sword light cut through the filthy immortal spirit's goddess-like upper body like a hot knife through butter. The huge female monster was cut into countless pieces by the 4 streaks of sword light, and thick green blood splattered out of its body. Ah! It was no longer a terrifying shriek, but the monster's scream before its death. The filthy immortal spirit was cut into countless pieces amidst its screams, and its body flashed with light. Bang! Following a sudden explosion, countless chunks of flesh exploded, turning into bursts of ashes that scattered across the ground. A huge magic stone fell on the ground, emitting light. Chapter 2057. There was a sudden silence. The army of larvae suddenly stopped moving. They froze on the spot as if they were in a daze and did not move anymore. In the midst of the group of monsters that had completely stopped moving, the people of Loki's clan looked at Noah, who had his back facing the huge magic stone that had fallen to the ground, and slowly lowered the shining silver steel sword in his hand. All of them fell into a daze. Including Ace. Her somewhat transparent eyes gazed at the man standing in front of the gigantic magic stone as she muttered. One hit, the filthy fairy, who had superstandard magical power, may be stronger than the strongest LV-7 auto in the Labyrinth City, but in the hands of Noah, it couldn't even make a move. This fact not only made Ace fall into chaos, but also made Finn and the others clench their fists. Is that his real strength? No. Definitely not. Because, in the war game with Apollo's clan, Noah once used a terrible magic that could destroy an entire city in one hit. That magic may be more powerful than the super long chant magic used by the filthy fairy. And in this battle, Noah didn't use that kind of magic at all. This proved that Noah's real strength was more than that. Understanding this, everyone was even more shocked. Bert's handsome face began to distort. Why is that bastard here? In the shock of everyone, the larvae monsters that were frozen in place suddenly moved. The death of their commander made this large group of larvae monsters begin to riot. They actually ignored the existence of the adventurers of Loki's clan and hurriedly fled. The sudden chaos on the battlefield finally caused Finn and the others to react. For the first time, Finn showed a somewhat fierce look. You want to escape after finding trouble? It's not that easy. The rest of the people also changed their expressions. Immediately afterward, the people of Loki's clan began to massacre. Seeing the people of Loki's clan rushing to kill the monsters as if they wanted to vent the previous depression and shock in their hearts, Noah shook his head with a smile. Immediately, he turned his head and looked at the huge magic stone behind him. The size of the magic stone was many times larger than the 17th floor's Goliath. It was like a small mountain. In addition, it was an unknown species of monster that was born after swallowing the fairy. If such a magic stone was sold on the ground, it could be sold for at least hundreds of millions of Varus. However, this huge magic stone was different from the other magic stones. Although magic stones were divided by quality and size, they were generally the same purple color. Even if some of them were deeper, they would still be purplish blue. However, although the huge magic stone in front of him was also purplish blue, the center part showed a kind of incomparably gorgeous color, as if there were all kinds of colors. It looked somewhat beautiful, but it gave people a very strange feeling, and even a very evil feeling. From this point of view, the filthy fairy was decisively different from the other monsters. Is it because it swallowed too many magic stones that its magic stone changed? Or is it because it swallowed the fairy? Noah pondered. It seems that, with the addition of special characteristics, the price of this magic stone is estimated to be an astronomical figure. The power that Noah transferred to the people of Loki's clan could not be maintained forever. In the end, it would fade with the passage of time and eventually disappear completely. Therefore, after bravely charging for a while, the doubled power in the bodies of Loki's clan had disappeared. However, the number of larvae monsters had also decreased sharply. Moreover, because the female monster was killed, all of them fell into chaos. They did not fight back at all and only fled randomly. In this way, Finn and the others naturally would not let this opportunity go. They constantly chased after the larvae monsters that were blindly fleeing. This hunt lasted for more than half an hour. When the last larvae monster fell and exploded, spraying a large amount of corrosive liquid, the group finally returned to the wilderness where the female monster was. They were all panting miserably. However, even though he was panting, Bert still rushed all the way back and directly rushed in the direction of Noah, cursing as he ran. "You bastard!" Seeing Bert's fierce look, Tiona and Tioni were shocked and hurriedly rushed up to hold Bert down. "What are you doing?" Bert struggled with all his might. "Let go of me." A Grade 1 adventurer's desperate struggle was simply like a raging bull, easily flinging any adult into the air. Unfortunately, Tiona and Tioni were also first-level adventurers, and their levels were not lower than Bert's. Moreover, in terms of strength alone, the Amazon sisters were even higher than Bert. Therefore, Tiona and Tioni easily suppressed Bert. Under Bert's struggle, they sighed one after another. "So it really turned out like this? That's why I didn't want to tell this werewolf his true identity. You knew from the start." Bert struggled even more desperately. "You bastards. You actually invited this guy into your clan behind my back. I'll bite you to death." Seeing Bert's desperate look, Noah was really speechless. "I said, I don't have any deep grudges with you. At most, we're not on good terms. Do you have to be like this? Huh? No deep grudges?" Bert's face twitched as he yelled at Noah. "Go to hell. No deep grudges. I can't wait to swallow you whole. How dare you say we don't have any deep grudges?" Bert began to struggle even more desperately, and it took a lot of effort for both Tiona and Tiona to just barely restrain the berserk werewolf. Wah! When did Bert's arms become strong enough to break free from us? Tiona, is this the power of jealousy? It's so ugly. Tioni, shut up. Stupid Amazon. Bert was going crazy. Let go of me. The three first-level adventurers were entangled with each other as if they were fighting bulls. Even Leafia, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but laugh dryly. As for Finn, Riveria, and Gareth, they were also speechless. What a scary obsession. Riveria, speaking of which, it's our fault for not noticing the true identity of our love rival, right? Gareth, after all, although we tried to hide it, we still accidentally mentioned the name Noah a few times in the strategy guide. The three leaders talked helplessly as they consumed the panacea that Leafia gave them to recover their strength and injuries. As for AIC, she kept staring at the silver holy sword in Noah's hand in silence. Clang! At this moment, the silver holy sword in Noah's hand blossomed with a bright light, gradually dissipating into light particles and condensing into a human figure. All of a sudden, everyone's attention was attracted by Aster. However, before anyone could react, Aster met AIC's gaze. His purplish eyes flickered a few times before he suddenly opened his mouth. Sure enough, you're also a fairy. It was a simple sentence, but everyone was stunned on the spot. This was especially true for AIC. Her crystal-clear eyes started to tremble violently, and her usually emotionless face started to show obvious emotions. In the end, Noah became the first person to be surprised. What? Noah looked at AIC in astonishment. You're a fairy? Not only Noah, but even Tioni, Leafia, and Bert looked at AIC in astonishment. Only Finn, Riveria, and Gareth looked at each other and fell into silence. The scene once again fell into silence. However, the silence this time was different from before. There was no oppressive feeling, but a faint sense of heaviness. Under everyone's gaze, AIC bit her lips and lowered her head, as if she didn't dare to look at everyone, and squeezed out this sentence. "I'm not a fairy." After leaving this sentence, AIC turned around as if she didn't want to say anything else. Finn, Riveria, and Gareth opened their mouths, but didn't know what to say. Tioni, Leafia, and Bert looked at each other in confusion. Seeing this, Noah frowned. It seemed that AIC's background wasn't simple. Chapter 2058. When night fell on the ground, in the bottomless underground city, in the camp of the Loki clan, the atmosphere also became a little quiet. Some of the Loki's members were responsible for patrolling and keeping watch, making the entire Loki's camp feel heavily guarded. However, compared to the time during the day, the atmosphere now was actually more relaxed. Because, during the daytime, although the Loki's camp was heavily guarded, there were no level 1 adventurers in the camp. Now, the level 1 adventurers of the Loki's clan had all returned to the camp, making everyone feel a little relieved. Naturally, the atmosphere was not as tense as it was during the day. Yes. Noah and the others returned to the camp. Not long ago. After completely conquering the unreached 59th floor, Finn didn't act rashly. Instead, he gave the order to return to the camp and end this expedition. No one objected to this decision. Although there were still some materials in Noah's gift card that could support them in conquering another floor, the whole day of conquering had already made everyone physically and mentally exhausted. That's the part that couldn't be recovered by items. Moreover, a filthy fairy appeared on the 59th floor, and no one knew what would happen on the next floor. Finn thought that they shouldn't take risks at this time. This expedition has achieved its goal, and they can't ask for more. Of course, AIC was one of the reasons why Finn made such a decision. Everyone could see it clearly. After encountering a filthy fairy, and being pointed out by Aster that she was a fairy, A's emotions were greatly shaken. Under such circumstances, Finn made the judgment that it was not suitable to continue the exploration and ordered them to retreat. Because of these two reasons, no one had any thoughts of retorting. So, everyone began to retreat to the floor where the camp was located, while picking up the magic stones and dropped items that were left on the previous floor, and returned to the camp with a full load. In this regard, the members who stayed in the camp were quite relieved and felt quite happy. On the other hand, the clearers who broke the record of reaching the floor had a gloomy expression. After putting down the luggage in their hands, they all returned to their respective tents. Noah was no exception. In a tent, Noah was lying on the bedding on the ground. He looked up and fell into his own world of thoughts. At this time, Noah had already suppressed the circulation of the energy in his body and transformed again to hide his true identity. Bert gritted his teeth at Noah's behavior, but under Finn's instructions, he expressed his displeasure that he wouldn't expose Noah's true identity. After all, in that case, the one who would suffer would definitely not be Noah, but Loki's clan. Bert would not do such a thing as harm to others and himself. However, the werewolf's attitude toward Noah had obviously worsened. However, the reason Noah was lying in the tent in a daze was not because of Bert, but because of AIC. Immortal essence? In this trip to the underground city, Noah had seen a lot of the mysteries and dangers of the labyrinth that he didn't have the chance to see before. He even met a filthy immortal essence, which was very exciting. However, Noah didn't expect that under such circumstances, AIC's identity would be revealed. If that girl is a fairy, then the reason why I could vaguely feel the presence of a filthy immortal essence and had the same reaction as Aster and Athena. Noah thought bitterly. But, if that girl is really a fairy, then I should be able to sense it. Noah originally had the ability to sense things that others didn't have. Coupled with his keen intuition, if AIC was really a fairy, then Noah would be able to recognize her at first glance. This wasn't something strange. In fact, even if it wasn't Noah, almost anyone in this world could recognize a fairy. This was because fairies were the avatars of gods. In this world, although the gods had sealed their powers, even if they only had the power of a mortal, they would still emit some divine aura to let others understand their identity as gods. Naturally, fairies who were known as the avatars of gods were in the same situation. If a fairy appeared in front of people, they would definitely be able to recognize her. However, Noah didn't sense the presence of a fairy on AIC. Seeing the shocked expressions on Tiona, Tioni, Rafia, and Bert's faces when they found out about this, it was likely that these people who spent all their time with AIC didn't know about this either. However, Finn, Riveria, and Gareth seemed to know something. This proved that even if AIC wasn't a fairy, she was still closely related to one. Otherwise, Aster wouldn't have suddenly pointed out AIC like that. Eulali's strongest swordswoman doesn't seem to be as simple and innocent as she seems. Just as Noah sighed with emotion, a subtle movement began to spread outside the tent. Noah returned to his senses, but he didn't even lift his head. Instead, he closed his eyes and said, "Come in if you want. If you want to come in, then come in. Stop pacing around outside." The commotion outside stopped instantly. After a while, Tiona, Tioni, and Rafia slowly lifted the curtain and walked in with mocking smiles on their faces. Looking at the group of young ladies, Noah opened one of his eyes and glanced over, speaking in an annoyed tone. "What do you want to say?" Tiona and Tioni exchanged glances before shifting their gazes to Rafia at the same time. Rafia blinked and didn't know what to do. Me? Tiona and Tioni nodded repeatedly, leaving Rafia to put on an expression as though she wanted to cry but couldn't. In the end, under Tiona and Tioni's silent pressure, Rafia took a step forward and stuttered. Mr. Noah, I'm here," Noah said with a half-smile. "And?" Rafia was speechless. She suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, I'm here to thank you." "Thank you?" Noah was startled. "Did I do something that you need to thank me for?" "Of course," Rafia said emotionally. "You've saved me a few times today. Now that you mention it, that does seem to be the case." Noah narrowed his eyes. "But I don't think you're here to thank me. You must have other motives, right?" The corner of Rafia's mouth twitched. Tiona and Tioni began to look at the sky as though it had nothing to do with them. This made Rafia have the urge to cry. Looking at the three clowns, Noah couldn't help but chuckle. "All right, don't think that I don't know why you're here." Noah sat up and cast his gaze on the three girls. "You're here to talk about AIC, right?" The three girls' faces brightened up. Yes. We're here to talk about AIC." Like a puppy wagging its tail at its owner, Tiona hurriedly leaped up and sat in front of Noah with a smile on her face. "Hey, little brother, is AIC really a fairy?" Seeing that Tiona had begun to ask questions, Tiona and Leafia hurriedly came over and sat around Noah. It was clear that they were also concerned about this matter. However, Noah wanted to say something. "You've known AIC for a few years. I've only known her for a few months. How would I know if AIC is really a fairy?" Noah sighed. "Besides, instead of asking me, why don't you ask AIC directly? Actually, we've already asked Miss AIC." Rafia's expression was rather gloomy. "But Miss AIC didn't seem willing to talk to us about it." "Yeah." Tioni curled his lips. "Every time we asked AIC, she kept silent and apologized to us. Please, she didn't do anything wrong, so why should she apologize?" "It's simple," Noah said straightforwardly. "Because that lass treats you as her real family and feels guilty for hiding it from you." The three girls were speechless. At this moment, an emotionless, crisp voice sounded. "That swordswoman must be closely related to the fairy." Chapter 2059. That swordswoman must be closely related to immortals. When such a sentence echoed in the space of the tent, a burst of dazzling light blossomed in the same way. Tiona, Tioni, and Lefia's eyes were blinded by the sudden light. They cried out in surprise and subconsciously shielded their eyes with their hands. It was only after the light dimmed that Tiona, and Rifia finally noticed the light. A pure and holy silver-haired girl had appeared beside Noah. Tiona, Tiony, and Lefia's eyes lit up at the sight of the adorable silver-haired girl. In this current era, the various gods had all descended to the lower realms and mingled with the various races of humans. Compared to the gods, the immortal spirits were more legendary. This was because apart from goblins who could easily blend in with humans, immortals of all races had chosen to hide in the mountains and rarely appeared before humans. Things were precious when they were rare. This principle could be applied to immortals as well. In addition, in all kinds of myths and legends, immortal spirits had always played the role of the guidance and support of the heroes and the brave. Naturally, they had a stronger sense of legend. Not to mention, immortals also had the power to create miracles. It was as if they had the ability to develop mysteriously. They were born with the ability to do things that only the gods could do. In an era without the grace of the gods, immortals were the grace of heroes and brave people. Thus, compared to the gods that could be seen everywhere, immortals were naturally more noble and legendary. How could Tiona, Tiony, and Lefia's eyes not light up when a true immortal appeared before them? However, under such circumstances, Aster only faced the gazes of the three girls and said this emotionlessly. Although it's not pure, I can sense immortal blood flowing in that human swordswoman's body. Aster's words extinguished the excitement in the girls' hearts. Immortal blood flowing in her body? Lefia hurriedly asked. Then, what does that mean? Could it be that AIC isn't an immortal but a descendant who inherited their bloodline? Tiony frowned. That's impossible, right? Immortals can't have children. That's right. Immortals couldn't have children. As clones of gods, immortals played the role of guides and assistants. Their main duty wasn't reproduction. Therefore, immortal spirits would not give birth to children. There was no such thing as heirs. I've read in books that immortals can't have children. Tiona tilted her head and said. Little immortal fairy, did you make a mistake? Noah also turned his gaze to Aster, his eyes filled with questions. Regarding this, Aster only met Noah's gaze. Her beautiful face was as calm as an ancient well, but her pair of mysterious eyes started to sway. Master, you don't believe me? Undoubtedly, Aster's words carried no emotion. But the way she looked at Noah gave the impression that she had been wronged. No matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to give a cruel answer in this situation. Noah was no exception. Of course I believe you, Aster. Noah hurriedly said. I'm just thinking that since immortals can't have children, then why does AIC have immortal blood in her body? Tiona, Tiony, and Lefia nodded as if they were coaxing a child. They couldn't say that they doubted the authenticity of Aster's words. Fortunately, although Aster had lived for more than 1,000 years, she was still an innocent little girl. She didn't doubt Lin Li's words. You don't have to go through the reproductive stage to have the blood of the fairies. The fairies are a race that can perform miracles to a certain extent. Just like how I can become my master's sword by signing a contract with him, that female swordsman called AIC may have also received the miracle of the fairies due to some reason and obtained the blood of the fairies. Is that so? Tiona, Tiony, and Lefia were enlightened. Even Noah felt that this explanation was the best explanation for AIC's situation. If AIC was an immortal, then others should be able to recognize her immediately. The reason why they didn't notice it was because AIC wasn't an immortal, but because of some miracle that only immortals could perform, she received immortal blood. Therefore, AIC was able to sense immortals to a certain extent. The wind magic that the swordswoman used might be the power of the immortal essence blood. Aster even said. After using that magic, that swordswoman's combat strength increased by a lot. For a human to be able to use magic, it's already a little against the rules. For example, Chun-Ji's magic could only increase the level of one person, which was a violation of the rules. However, that was also because Chun-Ji was a descendant of the only magic race among the orcs, the Foxmen. She could perform very special witchcraft, which was why she could awaken that kind of illegal magic. If there wasn't anything special about AIC, logically speaking, it was impossible for her to have a magic that could increase her attack, defense, speed, and all sorts of other aspects. It was impossible for her to have a magic that could substantially increase her strength and achieve an effect similar to leveling up. After all, other than intelligence, there was nothing special about the human race. So, AIC must have inherited the bloodline of a wind immortal, which allowed her to possess magic that humans don't have? Tioni nodded. If that's the case, then it explains why AIC's magic is so powerful. But, if that's the case, why didn't AIC tell us the truth? Tioni asked in confusion. Even if she inherited the bloodline of an immortal, it's not a bad thing, right? Or rather, to be able to inherit the bloodline of an immortal is definitely a noble and sacred deed. Leafia argued. Such a deed could even be recorded in the history books. Miss AIC isn't the kind of person who can't see the light of day. If that's the case, then it can only prove one thing. Noah lowered his head thoughtfully and said after a while. There's a secret behind AIC inheriting the bloodline of an immortal. Everyone fell silent. So did Noah. I should have thought of that. Noah smiled bitterly in his heart. How could a person like that not have a secret behind her pursuit of power and strength? Perhaps humans would unconsciously pursue power and strength. But, a person who would actively pursue power and strength must have some kind of reason. Ah. Tioni crossed her legs in frustration. In the end, there are still a lot of things that I don't understand. Tioni and Leafia smiled bitterly as well. As for Noah, he heard Athena's voice. If you care, why don't you just ask her? It was a simple sentence, but it went straight to the heart of the matter. It wasn't just Athena, even Aster looked at Noah and said the same thing. Master, are you going to look for that swordswoman? Noah didn't answer. Instead, he patted Aster's head. When Aster revealed a comfortable expression, he looked at Tioni, and Leafia and asked. Where's AIC now? Tioni smiled. Leafia raised her brows and didn't say anything. She told Noah unwillingly. At the edge of the camp, on the edge of a boulder that faced the vast forest, a golden-haired, golden-eyed girl stood against the wind, gazing into the distance. Her pair of crystal-clear eyes were unfocused, falling into a state of absent-mindedness. Who? A gentle breeze blew past, lifting up AIC's skirt, causing her long, light golden hair to sway like silk. If it weren't for the lack of a starry sky in the underground city, the girl who stood facing the night sky would be as beautiful as a painting. As a matter of fact, even without the night sky, this scene still attracted the attention of many patrolling guards in the campsite. They almost revealed an intoxicated expression. Under such circumstances, no one was willing to approach and disturb this picturesque scene. Only one person came out of the tent and slowly walked towards AIC under the watchful eyes of the patrolling guards. Chapter 2060. Perhaps it was the sound of footsteps behind her that woke her up from her absent-minded state. She turned around and looked behind her. When she saw the full appearance of the person, AIC could not help but be startled. Then, she lowered her eyes and acted like a child who did something wrong but dared not admit it. When he saw AIC in such a state, Noah moved his feet lightly and also came to the edge of the cliff. He gazed into the distance and softly said these words. What are you thinking about? AIC did not answer. Instead, she lowered her head even more. After a while, she spoke in a low voice. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? Noah smiled bitterly. Tiona, and Leafia have all said that before, and you've been apologizing because you feel that it's wrong for you to hide something from your fellow clan members. However, although I've joined the Loki clan, I've only known you for a few months, and I've only joined temporarily. Even if you're hiding something from me, it's only natural. There's no need to apologize to me, is there? However, after hearing this, AIC, who had been keeping her head down, lifted her eyes and looked at Noah. She spoke without any consideration. It's not like that. This time, it was Noah's turn to be startled. He looked at AIC. AIC's expression did not change as she met Noah's gaze. However, the spirit in her eyes was much brighter than before. Then, AIC said so. You are also a very important companion. Her voice lacked emotion, but there was a sense of persistence that came from the bottom of her heart. The startled expression on Noah's face gradually faded, and his expression became a little gentler. Is that so? Noah reached out and patted AIC's head like before. Even so, you don't have to apologize to me. After all, everyone has secrets that they don't want others to know. Just like me, I'm confident that I have more secrets than anyone else. These words were exceptionally persuasive. Because it was something that everyone knew. If there was no shocking secret, how could Noah be so powerful? How could he be so special? How could he form a contract with a deity? Therefore, no one was more suitable than Noah to say this sentence. Thinking back to Noah's past in front of everyone that night, AIC knew that it was easy to talk about it, but there must be a lot of unknown dangers and processes hidden in it. Thinking until here, AIC suddenly felt that compared to Noah's past, the things that she was hiding were really not worth mentioning. When this thought rose in AIC's heart, she had an impulse. She had an urge to tell Noah about it. Under the impulse of this impulse, AIC could not help but speak. I am indeed not a deity. The hand that patted AIC's head. Under such circumstances, AIC lifted her head and met Noah's deep, pitch-black eyes. But the fairy's blood flows in my body. My mother's blood flows in my body. Mother. That was the name AIC gave to the owner of the blood flowing in her body. There was no doubt that she was an immortal. And deities could not give birth to offspring. But AIC still called her mother. This was because the blood of that immortal flowed in AIC's body. Father is a hero. AIC said softly as if she was pulled into the abyss of memories. A true hero, the kind that is even recorded in fairy tales. Upon saying that, AIC turned around and stood shoulder to shoulder with Noah. While looking at the forest in the distance, she spoke with a voice that seemed like it would disappear in the wind at any moment. In the past, Father was very active as a hero, and Mother was a deity that helped him. In other words, AIC's father was like the heroes and warriors before the gods descended, receiving guidance and help from a deity. During this process, the two of them formed a deep friendship and fought together, creating many brilliant achievements in battle. During this time, the two met a friend who had the same instincts. During this time, the two's relationship improved. And so, AIC was born. Of course, deities were not a race that could give birth. Then, was AIC really their biological daughter? Noah was not stupid enough to dig into this question. Noah only needed to know one thing. That was, AIC's father was a true hero, and her mother was a legendary fairy. So, AIC was not a deity, but the blood of a deity flowed in her body. That was no doubt the miraculous result of AIC's mother's deity. Although AIC didn't go into detail, it was just as Aster had said, AIC had a great connection with the fairy. But, Noah did not expect AIC's father to be a real hero. What about your parents? Noah could not help but ask. Are they not here anymore? Hearing this, AIC lowered her head and said in a low voice with a dejected expression. During the final battle, we were separated. Every hero's story would have an ending. And this kind of ending would often end with a great battle. The hero in the story and the villain in the story would have a final battle. This kind of development was often the most important part of the story. As for the final battle, would the hero emerge victorious and defeat the evil, or would the evil continue to grow stronger, or would the hero sacrifice himself in the end to save the world, and both sides perish together? That would depend on the author's mood. And AIC's father, obviously, did not have a perfect ending. I kind of hate myself at that time. AIC suddenly said. If it wasn't because I was too weak at that time, I might have been able to save Dad and Mom. Is that so? Noah closed his eyes. Is that why you have always been chasing after power? So, I am not a hero like Dad. AIC's emotionless face was covered with a layer of sadness. I am only becoming stronger for my own personal grudge. But, no one said that it is wrong to not become stronger for others, right? Noah smiled. And, even if it is right to become stronger for others, you are not in the wrong. Because, you are chasing after power for your parents, right? AIC was silent. After a while, AIC asked this question. What about you? Noah was stunned. AIC looked straight at Noah and asked with her usual calm tone. Why did you become stronger? AIC's words reminded Noah of the dream he had seen in his mind. That was the dream that he had been having since he was young. In the dream, Noah was standing in a pure white world. Around him were pieces of feathers. Some of the feathers were complete, some were missing. And those missing feathers had been transmitting their feelings to Noah in the dream. What kind of feelings? Sadness. Helplessness. They represented a world, and all they wanted was to be whole again. That's right. It was just like a child, pure and simple. Now that he thought about it, it was the reason why Noah had the urge to become stronger in the first place. Because Noah wanted to respond to them. In response to the pieces of incomplete feathers. So, Noah smiled and answered from the bottom of his heart. Someone asked me for help, and I want to help them, so I have to become stronger first. It was a simple sentence, but it perfectly explained the nature of Noah's pursuit of power. And this answer seemed to be out of AIC's expectations. AIC looked at Noah blankly until Noah looked at her. Then, she smiled. Is that so? AIC retracted her gaze and continued to look into the distance, leaving behind a sentence that was carried away by the wind. You are really something. Something? Noah sighed in a noncommittal manner. Together with AIC, he looked at the endless sea of trees and said calmly and helplessly. Maybe I'm just being a busybody? Noah and AIC didn't say anything else after that. Both of them looked at the sea of trees in front of them silently, shoulder to shoulder, and let the silence spread between them. However, the atmosphere was not uncomfortable at all. Instead, it gave them a warm feeling. Chapter 2061. The next day, the members of Loki's clan began to get busy. The tent was untied. The bonfire was extinguished. The luggage was carried. The personnel were gathered. The temporary camp built on the boulder was dismantled at a speed visible to the naked eye, and gradually restored to a corner of the dungeon without any vitality. Only by careful observation could one find some traces of living people. After that, the members of Loki's clan began to retreat under Finn's command. In other words, this expedition was over. And the results were gratifying. Not only did they successfully reach the unreached area, but they also broke the record of the floors reached, and they even successfully conquered the 58th floor. The harvest was not small. After all, in the past, although Finn and the others successfully reached the 58th floor, they were sniped by the cannon dragon from the 58th floor when they stepped into the 52nd floor. Caught off guard, they fell directly to the 58th floor and lost all their items and equipment. In the end, they escaped with injuries and returned to the ground, saving their lives. In other words, although the previous record of the Loki clan was the 58th floor, it was not a serious strategy. It was only when they stepped into the 52nd floor that they were sniped and accidentally fell into a hole that was blasted open. They fell all the way to the 58th floor, which was why they obtained this record. This time, everyone seriously conquered the 58th floor, and even conquered the 59th floor. Not to mention other things, just the magic stones and dropped items as the spoils of war were a big harvest. In addition, Noah's gift card provided convenience, so that these spoils of war could be transported with ease, and not like before, because there was no way to carry them, they had no choice but to abandon them. This time, it was really a big harvest. If these spoils of war were sold, the pockets of Loki's clan would be rich. Previously, in order to deal with the new species of monsters, Finn spent a lot of money, not only to buy a large number of magic swords, but also to prepare the first-level adventurers with unbreakable attributes, plus a large number of materials. The cost was not a little bit. Therefore, if they could not make up for the losses in this expedition, then for a long time, the Loki clan could only tighten their belts and live a tight life. Fortunately, the harvest this time was gratifying. Of course, the harvest in terms of money was only one aspect. The experience points obtained by many members during the expedition was the most precious gain. Not to mention other things, the first-level adventurers of Loki's clan had gone through many bitter battles and encountered an extraordinary existence like the Fairy of Filth, so the experience points accumulated must be very high. Therefore, everyone was looking forward to it. They were looking forward to returning to the base camp and updating their ability points, how much they would grow. Driven by this mood, the speed of the adventurers of Loki's clan was not slow at all, at least faster than when they came. At the beginning of the expedition, it took Loki's people 5 days to reach the 50th floor. This time, it only took them 3 days to pass the 18th floor of the safety floor and return to the 17th floor. Such a speed could not be described as slow. However, the reason why they were able to return to the middle area so quickly was because they did not need to deal with monsters anymore, aside from the fact that their movement speed had increased. In the past, during the expedition, in order to accumulate experience points for the LV3 and LV4 second-level adventurers, after returning to the lower area, the first-level adventurers basically would not make a move. In this way, it would naturally affect the speed of their progress to some extent. This time, along the way, the LV3 and LV4 second-level adventurers almost had no chance to make a move. Because they were robbed of their kills. Boo, 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 boo. In the cave passage on the 17th floor, a group of minotaurs were holding stone axes high. Their eyes were red. While shaking the ground with their powerful footsteps, they rushed toward the adventurers of Loki's clan. The number of minotaurs was not small. At least, it was much more than the entire expedition team of Loki's clan. However, these monsters classified at LV2, although they were known as the most representative monsters, were easy to deal with for Oali's top clan group, whose lowest level was LV3. Even if the first-level adventurers did not make a move, it would be the same. However, before the basic members of Loki's clan could make a move, a golden figure rushed out. Swoosh! In the clear sound of footsteps, AIC suddenly pulled out the sword at her waist. A pair of gem-like eyes floated with a light full of momentum. Like a gust of wind, she rushed into a group of LV2 minotaurs. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The silver rapier turned into a flash of light in the sharp sound of breaking the air, sweeping in all directions. Poochie, poochie, poochie. Along with the sound of ripping silk, the minotaurs were all severed at the waist. A large amount of blood splattered out from their rock-like waists, dyeing the entire ground red. The dying screams of the monsters resounded throughout the entire cave passage. The people of Loki's clan could only watch AIC, who was getting fiercer and fiercer in the group of monsters, and they were all speechless. That's too violent, Tiona couldn't help but mutter. It's been 3 days, and she's still so violent. What exactly happened to AIC? Yeah. Tiona could not help but sigh. Although it's much better than the lifeless appearance when she came back from the 59th floor, if this continues, AIC won't really become a violent maniac, right? AI. Miss AIC is not a violent maniac. Leafia felt the need to protect her idol's image, and argued strongly. Although she usually looks like she doesn't talk much, Miss AIC is actually gentler than anyone else. Gentler? Gareth laughed as if he did not dare to ask. Although that child is not as warlike as others think, if you want to talk about gentleness, it's a little subtle. From my personal point of view, I hope that child can be gentler. Riveria opened one of her eyes and said in annoyance. As a woman, it's not right to fight and kill all day. Why don't you say that to yourself too? Finn laughed bitterly. Well, you're a woman too. Don't worry so much. Bert did not think that there was anything wrong with AIC, and snorted with his arms crossed. If AIC can vent a little, those monsters can be considered to have died a worthy death. Vent. Indeed, vent. AIC seemed to want to get rid of the unpleasant memories caused by the filthy fairy incident, and had been continuously killing for the past 3 days. So, this could only be a way to vent. Carrying a huge backpack, Noah, who blended perfectly into the crowd of basic members like an onlooker, sighed in his heart as he watched AIC charge into the horde of monsters. If this can make her feel better, then it's indeed a good thing. However, Riveria's words were not wrong. A girl who could only vent her feelings through killing when she was in a bad mood was really a little tragic. Although AIC was the descendant of a hero and the orphan of a fairy, and looked like a female warrior at the top of the world in the eyes of others, Noah knew that this girl who was not good at expressing her feelings was just an ordinary girl. Thinking of this, Noah looked at AIC who was killing monsters and made a decision in his heart. You're back. In the central square where adventurers came in an endless stream, in front of the Tower of Babel, Tiona raised her hands high and cheered at the blue sky with a happy smile on her face. Stop. Tiona couldn't bear to look directly at her and shouted. It's so embarrassing. Not only did Tiona feel embarrassed, but everyone in Loki's clan also had an awkward look on their faces. Thanks to Tiona, almost everyone in the central square where the adventurers were coming and going turned to look at them, and began discussing among themselves. The people of Loki's clan are back. Could it be that the expedition is over? Then did they refresh the floors and reach the unreached area? Who knows? Similar conversations were constantly heard, making the adventurers of Loki's clan, who were used to others' gazes, feel somewhat uncomfortable. Under such circumstances, Noah raised his head and looked at the Tower of Babel behind him. The white-walled tower towered into the clouds as usual. However, near the top of the tower, a scorching gaze was cast on Noah's back as usual. Chapter 2062. As long as he was in Eulalia, Noah could feel the burning gaze on him almost all the time. That feeling was most intense when he entered and exited the Tower of Babel. By now, it was impossible for Noah not to know who the gaze was coming from. The goddess who coveted Noah did not restrain her gaze at all. She had been secretly observing Noah with a burning and unrestrained gaze, which made Noah feel quite uncomfortable. No matter who it was, if they knew that someone had been secretly watching them, it would be very unpleasant, right? What's more, the goddess' gaze was so unscrupulous, as if she wanted to swallow Noah whole, full of possessiveness and greed. For Noah, who was already sensitive, such an explicit gaze was naturally as uncomfortable as being pricked by needles. For this reason, Noah even thought of really rushing into the Tower of Babel, pulling out the infatuated goddess and teaching her a lesson. However, Freya had not yet touched Noah's bottom line. Moreover, Noah could not possibly forbid others from looking at him, right? Due to various considerations, Noah had been letting Freya do as she pleased. But maybe it's time to talk to the goddess. With this idea in mind, Noah met the burning gaze that was cast on him, and his eyes gradually flickered. It was unknown if she had comprehended something from Noah's performance. The beauty's explicit gaze trembled slightly, and then she gradually began to retract it. At this time, Finn and the others also noticed Noah's actions. What's wrong? Finn asked on behalf of everyone. Is there something wrong? No. Noah withdrew his gaze and shrugged. It's just a bored goddess who has been infatuated with me. Finn and the others were stunned at first, and then they all remembered. I almost forgot. Gareth said as if he had suddenly realized something. There's another goddess who has always looked at you differently. Goddess Freya? Riveria looked up at the top of the Tower of Babel. According to Loki, that beautiful goddess is only interested in the men she likes. Furthermore, she has an unusual hobby of collecting. She has always liked to collect children with thorough souls. In other words, you've caught the eye of the goddess of beauty? Tiona tilted her head. I think he was courted by Goddess Freya. You better keep your voice down. Don't let anyone hear you. Otherwise, you won't be able to hide your identity. Tioni shrugged. However, the goddess of beauty's love is indeed unrestrained. The Amazon women are already unrestrained enough, but Goddess Freya is even more so. As far as I'm concerned, no matter if it's the goddess of beauty or the Amazon, the way they pursue love is too. Leafia groaned. Once the Amazons find a man they like, they will immediately capture him and bring him back. If it's a beauty, they won't even let go of his soul. It's really too scary, isn't that a good thing? Bert held the back of his head and said sarcastically. It's quite an honor to catch the eye of a goddess. Furthermore, the way she pursues the male she likes suits my taste very well. Why don't I try to kneel down and lick her? That way, I can have a taste of the goddess. Bert's words made all the girls cast piercing glances at him. Noah, on the other hand, smiled indifferently and said this. I don't hate being chased, but there's no need to pester me. Furthermore, I don't like women who are overly possessive and overly domineering. If you really want to chase me, you might as well just cook me a meal instead of watching me from the top of the tower. Oh, oh, oh. Everyone suddenly exclaimed in amazement. I see. Tioni nodded with a serious expression. You're the kind of person who values this aspect, aren't you? Did you hear that? AIC? Tioni hugged AIC, who had been silent all this while, and said with a smile. Do you like women who can cook for you with their own hands? Don't you want to give it a try? AIC was stunned for a moment, and then her pretty face blushed slightly. Rafia and Bert, on the other hand, flipped out. Miss Tioni. Please don't make fun of Miss AIC. Stupid Amazon. Don't talk nonsense over there. Under Rafia and Bert's furious glare, Tioni shouted, so scary, and then threw herself into her sister's arms. Noah could only smile bitterly at this. Goddess Freya is indeed an opponent that cannot be ignored. Finn licked his thumb and narrowed his eyes. Although Loki and Beauty were old acquaintances when they were in the heavenly realm, I really don't know if their relationship is good or bad. Moreover, our clan's relationship with Freya's clan isn't very good. We can even be considered enemies. After all, Loki's clan and Freya's clan are known as the two most powerful clans in Eulalia. Gareth grinned. But, since ancient times, there has always been only one most powerful existence. Others are curious about who is stronger between Loki's clan and Freya's clan, but we have always been competing with each other. In the past, we have also had conflicts with Freya's clan more than once or twice. Riveria exhaled. This time, the person that the beauty goddess covets is in our clan. This will probably make the conflict even more intense, right? Everyone nodded in agreement. All right, you don't have to worry. Noah said without much thought. I can handle the beauty goddess myself. I won't implicate the clan. However, Noah's words attracted everyone's reproachful gazes. What's wrong? Noah was stunned. Why are you looking at me like that? Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. I know that you are very capable. Even if you are alone, you can still fight against a god, a clan, and even the entire Eulalia. I wouldn't be surprised. Finn sighed and looked at Noah with a serious expression. However, I want to tell you that no matter how strong you are now a member of our clan. Your matter is our matter. Don't ever say that you won't implicate our clan if you want to solve it by yourself. As Finn's words fell, everyone else's expression became extremely serious. There was not a hint of pretense. Even Bert, although he snorted coldly, did not refute Finn's words. Although the surrounding grassroots members did not eavesdrop on the conversation between the higher-ups, they understood the atmosphere and turned to look at them, showing that they were of one mind. As for AIC, her eyes were fixed on Noah. "I've said it before," AIC said firmly. "You are also a very important companion." Seeing that everyone from Loki's clan showed a serious expression from the bottom of their hearts, Noah looked at them calmly. After a while, he suddenly smiled. "All right." Noah raised his hand in surrender. "I take back what I just said." Only then did everyone's expressions relax. "That's more like it." Tiona giggled and hugged one of Noah's arms. "Since little brother is being pestered by a strange goddess, we can't just sit back and do nothing." "That's right." Tioni hugged Noah's other arm with a smile on his face. "This is also for AIC." "For AIC?" Noah blinked, not understanding what was going on. "Why is it for AIC again?" "Tiona." "Tiona." AIC's eyes were full of protest. "Don't say weird things anymore." "That's right." Rafia also protested loudly. "This has nothing to do with Miss AIC, right? Only this time, I have to agree with this little brat's point of view." Bert's pair of tails stood up as if he was enraged. "Stupid Amazons. If you say anything strange again, I'll kick you." It was a pity that Tiona didn't fall for it at all. They continued to smile, which made Leafia and Bert reveal resentful expressions. Finn, Riveria, and Gareth watched this scene as if they were watching from the sidelines. They all felt helpless. "All right, stop fooling around," Finn ordered. "It's about time to go back." "Yes." Tiona finally let go of Noah's arm. And so, the group left the central plaza in a grandiose manner. Chapter 2063. Eulalie, the base camp of Loki's clan. As always, a messy and strange mansion was located there. Outside the gate, 2 armed guards stood upright like statues, guarding there loyally. They perfectly displayed the facade of one of the 2 most powerful clans in the Maze City. The mansion was quiet. Since the main members were on an expedition to the dungeon, the base camp was naturally less lively than usual. However, it didn't take long for the vitality to return. Because, on the street ahead, a team was walking in a mighty manner, which immediately attracted the attention of the 2 guards. Seeing Finn and a group of level 1 adventurers leading the way in front of the team of dozens of people, the 2 guards were pleasantly surprised. "Leader is back. Everyone is back." The guards' loud report immediately caused the originally quiet base camp of the Rockies to burst into an uproar and clamor. The members in charge of guarding the base camp began to come out of the mansion one by one, gathered in the courtyard, and opened the gate. Under such circumstances, Finn led the expedition team of Loki's clan into the base camp of Loki's clan while responding to the greetings of the members and the guards. Just as the atmosphere suddenly became lively, a figure suddenly rushed out from the mansion. "You're finally back." Amidst such cheers, the goddess in simple men's clothing rushed over. Furthermore, he didn't even look at the male members and directly pounced on the beautiful female members. "I missed you so much. My darlings. Let me see if you're hurt anywhere." While shouting, the main god, who liked to harass girls of the same sex, wriggled his hands with a wretched expression, as if he wanted to tightly grab a soft part that was easy to deform, and rushed straight out. Unfortunately, no one here didn't understand the behavior of their main god. Thus, the moment Loki pounced forward, Tiona, Riveria, and even Leafia turned around nonchalantly and easily dodged the over-god who was about to attack them. Bang! The wretched main god rushed straight to the gate and couldn't stop himself from crashing into it. He fell silent with his arms and legs spread out. The Loki clan members didn't seem surprised at all, and they acted as if they hadn't seen anything. They walked into the mansion without hesitation, and as they walked, they unloaded their luggage and ordered the clan members who stayed behind to carry it. Such a skillful and familiar response rendered Noah, who was following the team, speechless. It seemed that similar things had happened more than once or twice. Therefore, everyone entered the mansion one after another. Wait. Wait. Only then did Loki limp in, covering his red nose. Aren't you guys too heartless? We haven't seen each other for almost half a month. Shouldn't this be a touching reunion scene? As he shouted, Rocky started pestering a group of female members again. Tiona, aren't you tired? Tiona, do you want me to give you a massage? Riveria, talk to me. Leafia, your clothes are so dirty. Damn it, hurry up and take them off. Let's take a bath together. AIC. Don't ignore me. Loki, who was harassing the group of female members like a cannonball, had a flattering smile on his face, but it attracted the disdain of the group of female members. Loki, who was chased away, could only look for the male members with a dejected expression. He spoke weakly. Everyone, welcome back, we're back, Loki. Finn greeted Loki with an indifferent expression. There were no sacrifices in this expedition, and the harvest was quite good. It seems that the harvest was quite good. The powerless expression on Loki's face gradually faded. His eyes, which stared at the group of male members, began to show a calculating wisdom, and he smiled. Moreover, in addition to the harvest, it seems that something unexpected happened, right? His insight was astonishingly high. Although he usually only liked to harass cute girls like a wretched uncle, the existence in front of them was still a divine being. It was only at this moment that the group realized how astute the goddess named Loki was. I reckon this expedition was quite dangerous, right? Loki looked at Noah with a smile. It's really great to be able to rope you in before these children go on an expedition. Obviously, Loki had seen through the matter of who solved the crisis and the problem in the end. At this point, even Noah couldn't help but admire Loki. Compared to the pure, kind, and unscheming Hasti, as the main god of a clan, Loki was undoubtedly more outstanding. Of course, that didn't mean that Hasti was inferior to Loki. It was just that their natures as gods were different. As a pure and unsullied virgin goddess, Hasti excelled in love and care. She was like a spiritual pillar that gave the members of the clan great motivation. Loki, on the other hand, was an evil god known for her cunning. Rather than being a spiritual pillar, she was more inclined to directly participate in the matters of the clan. If Athena, known as the goddess of wisdom, had a clan in this world, then she would perfectly guide the clan to a bright path, right? So, it was just a matter of different natures. Thinking of this, Noah said so. Why don't you ask Finn about this expedition? I'm not the commander of this expedition, after all. After saying that, Noah directly moved in front of Loki and looked at her. But in this half a month, a lot of things should have happened to Hastia's clan. Find some time to tell me in detail. Leaving such a sentence, Noah turned around, waved his hand, and stepped up the stairs in the corner of the hall and walked up the tower. However, Rocky was not happy about it. That little guy only knows how to think about that shorty. Am I that bad? Loki's words made several level 1 adventurers of Loki's clan laugh. After returning from the expedition, the first thing everyone did was to take a good bath. In the dungeon, there weren't any good conditions for people to take a bath. Not to mention other things, even the female adventurers who loved cleanliness didn't even have a bath in the 50th floor of the dungeon. Only when they returned to the 18th floor did they have a lake for people to take a bath. But even so, after taking a bath, they could only wear the dirty clothes that had been dirtied countless times in the dungeon and didn't have a chance to wash them. Naturally, it wasn't that clean. So, after returning to the base camp, everyone took a bath first, changed into a new set of clothes, and then fell on the bed together and began to sleep. In the dungeon, even if there were companions in charge of keeping watch, no one would really be at ease to enter a state of deep sleep. Now that they were finally back home, the exhausted members of the expedition could finally have a good night's sleep. Therefore, everyone in the base camp, including Loki, didn't disturb the members of the expedition and let everyone have a good night's sleep. It wasn't until the next day that everyone woke up one after another and gathered in the dining hall to eat. Noah sat at the same table as before with the Level 1 adventurers. During the meal, everyone chatted as they ate. Accompanied by the chatter of the adventurers around them, it was very lively. "I'm done eating." Bert still looked unhappy as he finished his meal. Then, he turned his head and left his seat, heading out of the dining hall. Seeing Bert like this, the Level 1 adventurers of Loki's clan looked at each other and smiled helplessly. That werewolf seems to have a worse temper after knowing little brother's true identity. Tiona pursed her lips. With such a weird personality, how could anyone like him? Anyway, in Bert's eyes, a powerful male is a kind of charm. Tiona ate her meal as if she was used to it. Although this theory isn't wrong, it's another matter if his personality is so annoying. Well, don't say that. Loki seemed to have come over to join in the fun. He chuckled as he pestered the girls. Although Bert isn't very likable, he's not a bad person. He's quite cute. Everyone laughed one after another. Noah was already used to it. He asked Loki casually, "Oh, right. By the way, has anything happened to Hestia recently?" Chapter 2064. In fact, it had only been half a month since Noah left Hestia's clan. Still, as a clan that was directly related to Noah, Hestia's clan would certainly be the center of attention even if they weren't caught in the abyss of trouble during the period when Noah committed the taboo of deicide. In that case, Hestia's clan's activities in the past half a month should have attracted a lot of attention. Who knew what would happen if they attracted so much attention? However, Noah and Loki had an agreement that he would help Hestia's clan in secret. Therefore, Loki should have paid attention to news about Hestia's clan. When Noah mentioned Hestia's family, the smile on Loki's face disappeared, and he started to grumble unwillingly. That Shorty's clan is doing well. No one is targeting them. Don't worry. I'm not worried. I just want to know the current situation of Hestia's clan, Noah said in an annoyed tone. Tell me. Don't just play dumb. Okay. Loki's tone began to become a little displeased. Nothing bad happened to Shorty's clan. Those gods know that you just came out to avoid trouble. It's not that you don't have any attachment to Hestia's clan, so no one is stupid enough to suddenly cause trouble for Shorty's clan. After saying that, Rocky continued. If you want to talk about what happened, then there is indeed one thing that caused a sensation among the gods. Oh. The Level 1 adventurers of Loki's clan were all curious. What is it? Tiona was even more curious and couldn't wait to ask. Even your gods are shocked. What is it? It's that white-haired brat from Shorty's clan. I think he's called Belkrone. Loki curled his lips. After you started the expedition, Shorty updated the level record of her clan members in the guild. That white-haired brat has leveled up and reached LV2. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Looking at the crowd, Rocky snorted. You must think that there's nothing sensational about upgrading to LV2, right? Everyone nodded in agreement. To this, Rocky said so. Of course, there's nothing sensational about being promoted to LV2, but what if the white-haired little devil received God's grace only a month ago? 1 month? Everyone was surprised. Wait, Loki. Finn frowned. You're saying that Belkrone only took a month to promote from LV1 to LV2? That's right. Loki narrowed his eyes. Now, do you understand why this matter has caused such a sensation? The reason was simple. In current history, the fastest record for promotion from LV1 to LV2 was 1 year. This record was a miracle created by AIC. But now, Bale had broken this record. Compared with AIC, who took a year to upgrade to LV2, Bale's time to upgrade to LV2 was almost 12 times shorter. Promoted from LV1 to LV2 in a month and became a level 3 adventurer? How could such a thing not cause a sensation? Are you serious? Gareth said in surprise. Can he be promoted to LV2 in a month? It can't be wrong. Loki said very unhappily. Those meddlesome gods have investigated and determined that Bel Crony only entered Eulalia more than a month ago, and at that time, he had not received any grace. He visited many clans, hoping to join them, but he was rejected. In the end, Shorty took advantage of him. Since even the meddlesome gods have intervened in the investigation, it should be right. Riveria put down the cutlery in her hand and frowned. I didn't expect AIC's record to be broken like this. I didn't expect it either. Tioni also seemed to be a little surprised. The last time when the little brother brought him into the middle level to accumulate experience, we had no idea that he had just received the grace for a month. Yes. Tioni turned her head and looked at AIC. AIC thinks so too, right? AIC nodded, but her expression did not change much, as if she did not care that her record was broken at all. Because AIC knew who gave her record to be broken. Thinking of this, AIC turned her head and looked in the direction of Noah. The rest of the people were also silent and looked at Noah without saying a word. Under the gaze of everyone present, Noah said with an innocent face. Why are you looking at me like this? Seeing Noah there pretending to be innocent, everyone was speechless. You can understand if you think about it, right? Leafia couldn't help but mutter. If it weren't for Mr. Noah, that new adventurer named Bel Crone wouldn't have been able to rise to LV2 so quickly. That's right. Loki swung his arm. Even my beautiful AIC used it for a year. How could that kid from God knows where break this record? Then you've underestimated Bel. Noah said indifferently. Although that child is still a little immature, he has great potential. In your words, the possibility of Bale is very high. All I did was give him a push. Even without me, it wouldn't take long for him to level up and break AIC's record. It wouldn't be strange for him to do so. After all, in the month when Noah left this world, Bel, from a newcomer who had just received the grace, had raised his ability value by several stages and almost reached the A stage of the all ability value. This proved that Bel was also very talented. Of course, the reason why he grew so fast was mainly because of Bel's early maturity skill. It was because of the early maturity skill that accelerated Bel's growth, and Bel could improve so quickly. Noah really just gave Bel a push. Even without Noah, Bel believed that it wouldn't take long for him to level up. In this regard, Loki and the others who didn't know Bel had a face full of doubts. Even AIC tilted her head thoughtfully. Well, it's fine if you don't believe me. Time will prove everything. Noah spread his hands. Don't be too surprised. Look at me, wasn't I just a newcomer who had just received the grace a few months ago? Compared to you? Only a fool would do that. Seeing everyone rolling their eyes in unison, Noah touched his nose bitterly and continued to ask. Besides Bel, is there anything else? It's not a big deal. Loki said perfunctorily with some disinterest. In addition to the white-haired brat leveling up, a newcomer joined Shorty's clan. It seems that it was because of you that the original member of Ista's clan was disbanded. But she's just a LV1 rookie. Her race is very interesting, a very rare foxman, and she's very cute. Damn it, why would such a cute girl want to join Shorty's clan? Obviously, Loki didn't know that Chun-Ji had an extremely illegal magic. However, Ista's clan was only disbanded, not disappeared. Many battle whores knew about Chun-Ji's magic, so this secret shouldn't be hidden. However, as Loki said, with the deterrence of the God Slayer, even if everyone knew about Chun-Ji's magic, they wouldn't dare to act rashly, right? They were afraid that if they couldn't do it openly, others would use underhanded means. There were definitely many wicked gods in this maze city. Just when Noah was lost in thought, Loki seemed to see through what Noah was thinking and shouted intentionally or unintentionally. Don't worry about Shorty's clan. No matter what, I promised you to take care of them and won't let those white-eyed gods mess around. Hearing this, Noah was startled at first, then smiled. "Thank you, Loki. I'm just abiding by the agreement." Loki took a sip of the wine in his hand and stood up abruptly. "Forget it, let's not talk about Shorty. Let's update the ability value. This time, you have successfully conquered the 59th floor. You must have gotten a lot of experience points. Maybe you can level up. Hurry up and update the ability value so that I can fight in front of Shorty." Hearing Loki's words, everyone smiled bitterly, but they were also looking forward to it. Can they level up? Chapter 2065. Loki's Base Camp, Central Tower. In front of Loki's room, the members who came back from the expedition were lined up in a long line, chattering. The members who had not updated their ability value were all lined up in an orderly manner. Aze, Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia, who had updated their ability value, gathered at the side and were also in a heated discussion. Noah came out of Loki's room with a piece of parchment in his hand, proving that he had updated his ability value. Seeing this, Tiona and Tiny greeted each other. "Little brother. Over here. Come over here." Noah shook his head with a smile, but he did not stop. While letting the next member enter Loki's room to update his ability value, he went to the circle of girls. "How is it?" Noah asked. "The result is okay, right?" The girls did not answer, but handed the parchment to Noah at the same time. Noah glanced at it. Tiona Ziliudi LV. 5 strength, A, 889, A, 899, durability, A, 867, A, 875, dexterity, B, 778, B, 783, dexterity, A, 801, A, 816, magic, I, 0, I, 0, punching, G-diving, G-abnormality resistance, H-breaking, I skills, berserk brings chaos increases attack power according to the degree of injury. The big fight increases all around when near death. Tiny Ziliudi LV. 5 strength, A, 824, A, 833, durability, B, 769, B, 777, dexterity, B, 781, B, 794, dexterity, B, 785, B, 799, magic, G, 207, G, 210, punching, G-diving, G-abnormality resistance, H dexterity, I magic. Gem and guard binding magic has a certain probability to forcibly stop the target. Success rate is affected by the amount of magic. Skills, anger begets chaos increase attack power according to the degree of injury. Increase the effect according to the degree of anger. Great counterattack greatly increase strength when near death. Rafia Verides LV. 3 power, I, 84, I, 88, durability, H, 121, H, 124, agility, G, 207, G, 211, agility, G, 252, G, 255, magic power, B, 723, A, 801, magic conductor, H anomaly resistance, I magic, spiritual bow of light arrow, single shot magic automatically track the target. Volley of javelins, AoE attack magic. Flame attribute. Circle of fairies summoning magic can activate magic that is restricted to the elven race. Prerequisites. You must fully grasp the target's magic effect and chant. Summoning magic will consume a corresponding amount of spiritual energy. Looking at the ability values of Tiona, Tiny, and Leafia, Noah inwardly exclaimed, as expected. Although he had long known that it was impossible for others to grow too fast, and that they might not be able to increase their familiarity by 20 after a month of hard work, Noah didn't feel this at all when he was in Hestia's clan. Not to mention other things, Noah's own growth was definitely at the level of breaking the rules. Bale's growth was also abnormal because of his early maturation skill. Only Lily's growth was too slow, so she became a professional support. In other words, before this, Noah had never had a comparison and didn't know how difficult it was for other adventurers to grow. Now, looking at the ability values of Tiona, Tiny, and Rafia, Noah finally felt it was real. They had already traveled to the 59th floor of the unreached area, but Tiona's and Tiny's proficiency had not increased by more than 40. It was really sad. Because Rafia was a magic shooter, it was normal for her to increase less in the other 4 attributes. However, the increase in magic was only 1 stage, and compared to Noah's previous situation where he often jumped several stages, it was not even comparable. Of course, this was also because the basic abilities of the girls were already at Stage A and Stage B, which was extremely close to the highest level of Stage S, so it was more difficult for them to improve. Compared to Tiona, Tiny, and Rafia, Ace, who had just reached LV 6 not long ago, had more proficiency. Ace Wallenstein LV 6 Strength, I 30, I 53, Durability, I 39, I 48, Dexterity, I 58, I 86, Agility, I 57, I 92, Magic Power, I 45, H 159, Hunter, G Abnormal Resistance, G Swordsman, H Healing, I Magic Frowny Face Wind Spirit Rush, Additional Magic. Wind Attribute. Chant, Awaken. The overall proficiency of all ability attributes increased by more than 200. This was already considered a very high growth. Perhaps it was because AIC had single-handedly blocked the Filthy Fairy's super long chant and successfully used Crush Magic, which gave AIC a lot of experience points. After all, the level of the Filthy Fairy was at least LV 7 or even higher. In terms of EXP, it must be very high for her to block the super magic of an enemy of that level alone. It's not so easy to reach LV 6. Tiona said with some frustration. I still want to catch up with Ace this time. If we can defeat the Immortal of Filth, we might be able to rise to LV 6, right? Tyogni shrugged. Unfortunately, that Filthy Fairy was defeated by Little Brother in 1 move. But if Mr. Noah didn't make a move, we don't know if we can defeat that Filthy Fairy. Rafia recalled the crisis at that time and couldn't help but feel a little scared. That Filthy Fairy is too powerful. Even if we fight to the death to defeat her, if the price is the sacrifice of people, then I'd rather not. Both Tyan and Tyan nodded. Even AIC agreed with the idea. In fact, at that time, if Noah used the double ability of the gauntlet to help everyone, it was not impossible to defeat the Filthy Fairy. However, in the end, Noah didn't let everyone take the risk. Thinking of this, Noah sighed helplessly. We were already very careful not to make a move, but in the end, we still couldn't hold back. In terms of the result, Noah saved the group of Loki's clan, but also made the group of Loki's clan lose a chance to level up. However, just as Rafia said, in the situation at that time, if Noah insisted on not making a move, then even if they could defeat the Filthy Fairy, Loki's clan might have to pay the price of sacrificing people, right? Noah still didn't want to watch this happen. Therefore, whether it was a good thing to make a move was still up for discussion. Oh right. Tiona looked at Noah. Little brother, how are you? AIC, Tyogni, and Leafia immediately turned to look at Noah. Noah smiled and presented the parchment in his hand in front of everyone. Noah Dole LV 5 Strength, A 846, I 0, Durability, A 868, I 0, Dexterity, A 855, 0, Agility, A 873, I 0, Magic Power, A 842, I 0, Mystery, H Magic Guide, I Swordsman, I Shatter, I Magic, Magic Cannon, Projectile Magic extremely malleable. According to the different chanting methods, the power and scale can be changed. Enhance, Permanent Magic. Ability value is improved comprehensively. The degree is determined by the amount of spiritual power, magic power, consumed. Materialize, Imitation Magic. Only limited to imagination. When the imagination is too weak, the power will decrease and there is a certain chance of failure. Skills, protection from the world, permanent skill. Equal to luck. Events that have a direct relationship with luck will eventually lead to the most favorable result. Sure enough, he leveled up. Tiona, Tiny, and Rafia cried out at the same time. All the members in the queue turned their heads in astonishment. Leveled up? Is it Drake? I remember that Drake was already LV4 when he joined, right? In other words, Drake has leveled up to LV5? Really? Our clan tribe has another level 1 adventurer Mantis. Such a clamor made Bert, who was in line, speechless. Finn, Riveria, and Gareth naturally heard the news because they took the initiative to stay at the back. Suddenly, the entire central tower became lively. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.